All right, we are ready. Today is Tuesday, April 25th, 2023. This is a combined special meeting and work session. I am calling this meeting to order. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.02, notice is hereby given to the members of the City Council and the general public that at this work session, the City Council may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for legal advice and discussion with the city's attorneys on any item listed on the following agenda. City Clerk, can we have roll call?
Mayor Daggett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Aslan.
Present.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember House.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Here.
Councilmember Sweet.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember McCarthy, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I would, Mayor. Please stand if you're able.
Vice Mayor, would you read our mission statement?
The mission of the City of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
Thank you. Councilmember House, our land acknowledgement.
The Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by Native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you. We are moving into public participation, which enables the public to address the council about items that are not on the prepared agenda. Public participation appears on the agenda twice, at the beginning, now, and at the end of the work session. You may speak at one or the other, but not both. Anyone wishing to comment at the meeting is asked to fill out a speaker card and submit it to the recording clerk. When the item comes up on the agenda, your name will be called. This is for later on. Anyway, you may address the council up to 3 times throughout the meeting, and comments are limited to 3 minutes. So our first public participation is Trudy Thompson Shoemaker. Yes, please. And speak into the microphone so that you are recorded and heard by all.
Thanks for having us. I'm with the American Red Cross. I'm a volunteer and a nurse, and have been active with the American Red Cross for many, many years. And I am here to present the American Red Cross National Lifesaver Award to 2 young women who had great training. They saw an emergency at the pool at NAU. This was in January, and they sprang into action. They didn't think twice. They did all the right things, and today there is a young woman swimming at the pool just fine after these 2 young women took care of her. So I'd like to bring up Haley and Alexis. I tell you, your community is in really good hands with these 2 young women. I may have your certificates mixed up. No, I got them right. This is Alexis and this is Taylor. And the young woman who was swimming had a problem, a medical problem. She dislocated her hip while she was swimming. Can you imagine? I've had a hip replacement. I cannot imagine how painful that was. So she was helped out of the water by Taylor. Taylor was on scene first. The young woman was in such pain, she stopped breathing. She lost consciousness. Alexis was on the scene very quickly. EMS was on the way. But in the meantime, they did what it took to keep this young woman breathing with help and safe. So she recovered, and she's back in the pool, thanks to these 2. So I'm one of the older people in this room. I get worried. Oh, who's going to take care of my community when I have to hang it up? I'm not worried. These ladies have it, so thank you. And also a quick shout out to Sean, because in talking with him, I learned he did the same thing. When he was 16 years old, he was a lifeguard. Stand up, let them know who you are. Come on. He was 16 years old. He was a lifeguard in Sedona, right? And saw a little boy go under. And Sean did all the right things, and then was able to ask the little guy later, like, why were you in the deep end? He was a swim coach. And the little guy was out of bounds. But thanks to Sean's quick action and training, the little boy is just fine. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Trudy. Michael Pappas.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Okay. I had talked here a few weeks ago regarding our Flagstaff NAPTA Public Bus Agency, most likely the biggest criminal act going on in our city right now. I'm the book, trust me. Okay. I could talk forever about them, and I have the evidence. Okay. But not to be repetitious, from a few weeks ago, I'd like to go in a different direction here, and I would like to inform the public and council about the erroneous procedure of Flagstaff Police Department in NAPTA matters, okay? And I want to say that I study law every day, and I'm right what I'm gonna state, okay? So every time the NAPTA employees, bus drivers, supervisors regularly troll our passengers, and everybody who rides regularly knows that to be a fact, okay? To get reactions out of us, to question them, we're immediately trespassed off the bus, and me personally, I learned the law on this, okay? If I have not broken a law, okay, I don't have to leave the bus. It's because NAPTA is public property, okay? So until I have broken a law, not even the police can trespass me. So here's the point I want to make, okay? So as you can imagine, every last time, I'm guessing this happened 16 times over the past few years, then NAPTA calls the Flagstaff police down. Every time, okay? The Flagstaff Police Department officers will immediately walk straight up to the NAPTA employees to get a statement. Then they walk back to me and say, Mike, so NAPTA says they want you trespass, so you have to leave, okay? Flagstaff Police Department, shame on you, okay? That's not how it works by law, okay? So, again, and these NAPTA drivers, I know all of them, okay? I know the troublemakers, which are the majority of them, okay? The supervisors, okay? They have no regards for people's lives, livelihoods, necessities, jobs, or anything else for that matter, okay? Plans, okay? Everything is about their power trips, trolling the people off the bus, okay? So, and again, Flagstaff Police Department shows up every time, and it ends with me telling them the federal law in the situation, and the Flagstaff Police Department telling me that if I don't leave, I will be arrested. So for those who don't know, that's literally a federal crime by Flagstaff Police Department under Title 18 U.S. Code 242 regarding obstruction of rights. As a matter of fact, for those who don't know, public transportation is a constitutional right under freedom of travel, and the vehicles are provided by government as an extension of that right, okay? We the taxpayers pay for all this. NAPTA is literally public property, okay? So you got the and the trespasses regularly turn into 3-month bus riding suspensions every time the next day when you try to ride. I'm not giving a sob story for myself, okay? No, okay, last words. NAPTA does this to everybody, countless, okay?
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Okay.
Michelle James.
Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. My name is Michelle James. I'm the Executive Director of Friends of Flagstaff's Future. I'm here to speak with you today about the upcoming public hearings on May 2nd and May 16th related to the NAH request for a zoning map amendment and specific plan approval for approximately 98 acres. F-Cube understands that NIH is requesting a speedy review and approval of the rezoning and specific plan process for Phase 1. F-Cube is concerned with the short timeline proposed for the public hearings. This project is large, complicated, and has many hundreds of pages of documents that provide important details and information. Council needs the time to understand and contemplate the project details. The proposed relocation of the hospital and the adjacent Phase 2 Wellness Village will have a large impact on the Flagstaff community. This development is impactful because of the proposed location outside the city center, because of the associated and very expensive infrastructure costs required for the development, because of the abandonment of the existing NIH campus and likely other nearby medical buildings in the near future. And it is impactful to our carbon neutrality goals that address our city's climate emergency. Because of these significant impacts, F-Cube urges the Council to not rush through this process. Instead, take time to closely consider the proposal. Provide time to the community to engage and discuss the proposal and more fully understand the impact, the benefits, and the consequences. F-Cube would like to commend the thoughtful discussions and questions posed by the Planning and Zoning Commissioners during the hearings of this project the last 2 months, and in particular during the April 19th special meeting. At that meeting, some of the commissioners said that they had not fully understood the consequences of approving the regional plan amendment that changed the residential activity center in this project area to a regional activity center, and they regretted the rushed vote. F-Cube provides this as an example to illustrate the complexity and interconnectedness of all parts and phases of the proposal. This is the largest development Flagstaff has considered in many years, and the community and the council must be given the time for thoughtful consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Jamie Whelan.
Jamie Whelan, 1819 North San Francisco, 86001. Mayor Daggett, Vice Mayor, City Council members. I first want to thank you for your service to the Flagstaff community. I am a member of the Sunnyside Neighborhood Association Subcommittee focusing on the redevelopment of Firehouse 2. You have the opportunity to help in the revitalization of a section of Sunnyside neighborhood where the old firehouse is currently located. The vision of a STEM community building on that spot will create a legacy that the Sunnyside community will never forget. It will serve as a safe place that will have the ability to enrich the minds of children, adolescents, teens, and parents to the amazing world of science, technology, engineering, art, and math for years to come. The funding for this project would come from a reallocation, the $2.4 million of unencumbered, unrestricted funds that were left over from an ARPA revenue loss fund. This is where you come in. We ask that you recommit those funds to the Sunnyside redevelopment project of Firehouse Number 2 so that the creation of a STEM community building can take place there. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Jamie. John McCartney.
Good afternoon. My name is John McCartney, and I've been a local resident for nearly 35 years. And I'd like to talk about first, do no harm. We've all heard the opening of the Hippocratic Oath, first, do no harm. This oath that medical students take has changed over time, but they all concern doing good, being just, and avoidance of malfeasance. A modern version, as penned by Tufts University Medical School Dean Louis Lasagna, MD, emphasizes prevention over cure. So with the guidance from our doctors, I urge us to First, do no harm. Gone are the days of bloodletting the patients and thoughtlessly putting out forest fires as first treatments. As our environment gets worse and dramatic weather events become more horrific, we will be more and more worried for our future. Our children's constant fight and flight reactions will cause their cortisol to kick them to the grave faster. Neither man nor beast will outrun the catastrophic effects of climate change without immediate action. Government and quasi-governmental entities are leading the way in green building. They set expectations for designing and building green projects. Some of us not only talk the talk, but we also walk the walk. A few examples. The feds are paying for electric vehicle charging stations. City of Flags taken the oath for carbon net zero by 2030. NAU has built several LEED certified buildings and pledges carbon neutrality by 2030. What will NAH do first in developing these projects? I urge them to build a great LEED design and construction team to ensure an earth-friendly project. This will be the biggest ever considered for Flagstaff. We won't get a do-over. Some of the design elements that a LEED design team considers are sustainable site, water use efficiency, energy efficiency, materials and resources, including reuse of existing buildings or building elements. A good design needs to come first to ensure minimum harm to the environment. First, do no harm. Why? To stop cataclysmic die-off of life on Mother Earth. This project may be Flagstaff's biggest contribution to the greenhouse gas CO2. It will contribute to the already in progress 6th extinction event on Mother Earth. The past 5 events have killed off between 60 and 96% of life on Earth. That's each one did that. 2/3 of Mother Earth's 6 extinction events are directly related to changes in atmospheric CO2 and other greenhouse gases. Where will it end?
Thank you, John.
And where will we end? Thank you.
Paul Harrow.
Good afternoon, Mayor Daggett, Vice Mayor, Town Council members, and staff. My name is Paul Otto, and I'm a longtime resident of the neighborhood south of Bushmaster Park. I have played tennis on the Bushmaster courts for 30 years. Until 4 years ago, Flagstaff residents enjoyed the tennis and basketball courts without conflict. Then the pickleball players showed up. About 2 years ago, these courts became reserved for pickleball during morning and some evenings. Pickleball use increased exponentially, and some players have been aggressive about using the courts. Players have even been bullied neighborhood kids playing basketball during the afternoon, telling them the courts were reserved when they were not. These kids went home because they are good kids, but the overall lack of court etiquette has been significant and ongoing. There are also current noise impacts on neighbors. Neighbors have thus far tolerated the existing levels of use, but not without noting the irritation associated with the pop, pop, pop of ball play for the courts, even with the existing barrier of these deflecting, absorbing sound. Just a month ago, the city notified 80 park neighbors, but not all neighbors, but they intend to construct 8 new pickleball courts adjacent to the south boundary of the park. In addition, they want to formally stripe existing tennis and basketball courts for pickleball use. So now the potential exists for up to 14 hours a day for pickleball use by up to 64 players, expanding neighborhood noise impacts, and increasing conflicts with other court users. Neighborhoods learned of this only a month ago. We are just now able to respond. We are building petitions and public awareness. There has been no public process, no input asked for, and no opportunity and comment until now. I am commenting. The biggest issue, even beyond conflict, is noise. Pickleball is noisy. Its ball and paddle sound is uniquely high-pitched, carrying into the local neighborhood. It disrupts local residents' peaceful enjoyment of their homes they lived in for many years. The project has a permanent impact on Flagstaff resources. The city climate plan should require assessment of environmental impacts of this project. It would remove approximately 15 ponderosas and an alligator juniper, most of them old-growth habitat trees, and replace them with concrete pavement. Once done, this cannot be undone. Once the trees are gone, noise impacts increase on neighbors, not only from pickleball, but from all park activities. User conflicts are significant, and I have spoken about them already. And the noise is the primary bottom line affecting all neighbors, to which everything returns. What do we want? We are asking the city to please stand down. We are asking for a public process. We're asking for the city to determine where pickleball courts in general should be located, given their wide-reaching and growing impacts. Ultimately, we'd like to eliminate the proposal to further expand pickleball in Bushmaster Park. Further, we would like to regain use of the tennis and basketball courts for players and neighborhood kids to enjoy. Thank you,
Paul. Stephen Summer.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, thank you all for the opportunity to come here and speak, and thank you for your hard work in evaluating this $1 billion NAH proposal that's going to be before you next Tuesday. I know that you all are hearing a lot from NAH, and so I hope you will also listen to the message from the public. The NAH proposal is not in the best interest of the city, not in keeping with the regional plan, and not in the best interest of the community. The Flagstaff Regional Plan calls for net zero by 2030, as you've already heard, and as you well know. It also calls for new developments to help the city in reaching that net zero goal by 2030. So how can the city determine how the NAH proposal will affect the city's ability to meet that goal? The only way is to make determination for NAH to provide the carbon footprint for their proposal. Without that number, there's really no way to evaluate its effect on the ability of the city to reach that goal. And I know you all are hearing lots of different things from the NAH group, but you really need that number just to start the conversation. So NAH has not said what the carbon footprint of the project will be, so the city has no way to determine how it will affect the net zero goal. With regard to making findings, I know this is part of the language I'm just learning for the first time, but you all are familiar with. The City Council must find that the NAH proposal does not meet the requirements of finding number 1, since it is not in keeping with the goals of the regional plan. With regard to finding number 2, the reason for that goal of net zero in the regional plan is to protect the health and safety of the Flagstaff community by protecting it from the threats of climate change, including wildfire, flooding, and extreme weather of all sorts. By violating the requirements of net zero by 2030, the NAH proposal violates the requirements of finding number 2. Therefore, the City Council must reject the current NAH proposal, at least until such a time as NAH provides the city with the carbon footprint of their proposed project, and the Sustainability Division can evaluate its effect on the city's ability to meet its goal of net zero by 2030. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Stephen. Ellen Ivey.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. My name is actually, I go by Missy, M-I-S-S-Y, but it had to be official, so I am really Ellen on the books. I'm here today because other people have spoken it this afternoon. I too am concerned about NAH. I'm not a student of this project, but there are, call them rumors, a lot of information, but it concerns me that we would enter into a project this big that will affect us forever without all of the facts and without clear consideration. and I wanted to voice that. Another thing that occurred to me, I have no idea if this will affect anything, but the location of the new hospital being south of town, I was thinking about the indigenous people who, for the most part, live north of Flagstaff. They take up a large portion of Arizona to the north. And I don't know if this has been considered and whether this would be advantageous for them. And it will be a, quote, regional hospital, but will it be regional to the south? Or will it really help the people who live in northern Arizona? So thank you very much.
Thank you, Missy. All right, that is it.
Mayor?
Oh,
I apologize for interrupting.
we
I've
have
got to.
something online.
Thank you. All right, our first speaker will be Renee Redday. Renee, if you'd like to go ahead and unmute, you can give your comments now.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Renee Redday, 1718 North Main Street. Thank you all to council for your dedication to our city. I would like to speak about the redevelopment of Firehouse Number 2. I am a Sunnyside resident, a mother of a 14-year-old, a small business owner with a consultancy focused on building community. And I think that fire station, the redevelopment of that fire station would be a great community builder in our neighborhood. So that's what I'm focused on. I think the city has an opportunity to use that of a place not only to connect families to resources, but also to each other. One of the things that I provide trainings on is protective factors, which is a framework that says what families, vulnerable families most need to feel supported. That firehouse could provide that opportunity to meet many of those protective factors. It has the potential for being a base of social connection, a base for concrete supports and resources. If we engage with a STEAM center as well, there could be some knowledge of child development and social emotional development for children. So I think all of these are ways that the building could be used to build connection among our community and also resiliency of the folks within our neighborhood. I think that the placement of it is unique. It is adjacent to the ball field. And so it could be a great placement for folks of different ethnicities and socioeconomics to gather, so that we're building up knowledge of each other, we're making those social connections. So it's a really unique place where diversity could be built. And I think that there's a great opportunity there that I hope is explored further to recreate this space so that it is a community hub for connection and for an intergenerational learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Mayor, we have one more online commenter. Adam, if you'd like to go ahead and unmute, you can give your comments now.
One more comment. Hey, everybody. Hey, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, leadership, staff, members of the public, former vice mayors and council members. Jamie, great to see you. My name is Adam Shmoney. It's great to be here with you on this beautiful spring day. I wanted just to start off, I'm speaking today on behalf of myself. And the first thing I wanted to mention was just, shout out to you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council Member Matthews, I believe it was, with staff who went out to DC for a lobbying trip. From what I hear, that went really well. And thank you all for your service to our community and your leadership. I also wanted to wish everybody a happy Earth Day. The Earth Day events were excellent this year, and special shout out to the city's sustainability team for their efforts at Bushmaster. That was a lot of fun. I wanted to let the mayor and council know that I hosted a bike ride out there, and we had a great turnout. It was a lot of fun, but I will say that going up 4th Street was really not okay. No sidewalk on the east side of the streets, and the bike lane, we were hoping to take the lane, but cars were moving too fast, so we rode in the bike lane, and it was super dangerous. I think we all felt concerned for our lives, and we had kids with us too. And so, but yet there's 5 lanes of car travel, right? So where are our priorities and where are our values? I do question that, and I hope that this council can address that at a later date. But I just wanted to raise awareness about 4th Street's issues for bike and pedestrian mobility. I wanted to mention that Bike Month is coming up as of May 1st, and I hope to see many of you at the many bike events. You can find them all on the Flagstaff Biking .org website for FBO, Flagstaff Biking Organization, and there's a lot of great things happening. And then the big thing that I wanted to speak about today with my time is your upcoming budget retreat. Because the agendas don't go live until about a day prior, we'll see what day the topics will all fall on. But I will share that many people ask how the last budget retreat went, and I'm proud to say that unanimous support by council to prioritize the funding of the Butler Corridor elevation and those 2 intersections is much, much appreciated. I'm proud of this mayor and council and that direction that was given. And I would just encourage you with staff to look into 419 funds for the funding of those projects. Often we look for grants, but that's a process and it can take years and it's not guaranteed. But yet 419 funds is often where projects turn to when they need additional funding support. So please look at that as an option as you move forward with this process. And just that, the last thing is, what a great gift that would be to the community for Bike Month, the funding of these key projects. Have a great meeting, and I will see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. And it looks like we don't have any more online commenters.
That is correct.
No. All right, so moving on to item number 5, proclamation, National Infertility Awareness Week. Is Karen Schaefer here? Come on down, and council, will you meet me down there on the steps? So if you'll come up here, I'll read this, and then I'll ask, we'll take some photos, and then I'll ask you if you'd like to say something. According to the CDC, 1 in 8 couples have trouble getting pregnant or sustaining a pregnancy. The World Health Organization and American Medical Association defined infertility as a disease. Infertility affects women and men equally and does not discriminate based on race, religion, sexual orientation, marital status, or socioeconomic level. The LGBTQI+ community also faces challenges when building their families. All people challenged in their family building journey should have access to all family building options. Family building options include adoption and medical treatment such as in vitro fertilization and third-party reproduction. Cost and lack of insurance coverage are barriers for many in our city to access the family building option they need. Raising awareness of infertility and the barriers faced by the family building community is the first step to removing these barriers. Whereas Flagstaff, Arizona joins Resolve, the National Infertility Association, and dedicated volunteers, healthcare professionals, and members of the infertility and family building community by participating in this promotion. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Becky Daggett, do hereby proclaim April 23rd through 29, 2023, National Infertility Awareness Week. All right, so Where is, oh, can we get a photo and then we can maybe come in and then, do you have something that you'd like to say? Please.
I just wanted to thank you all for responding to my request and my email that I had sent. Infertility is one of those things that many people, they kind of go through it silently without actually talking about it with their friends and family. And it's a disease that affects actually the World Health Organization just announced, I believe yesterday, that it's now 1 in 6 people that it's affecting. And so I actually spent all morning speaking to our representatives and senators here in Arizona, asking them for greater coverage for health insurance, just because it's not typically covered. But I think that our first step really needs to be just talking about infertility and how many it actually affects. And as a mom through IVF, it's just one of those things that my biggest hope is just to make sure that my children, if they're faced with the same challenges, don't have the financial struggles on top of it like we have had to endure thus far. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I believe we have some recognition for someone named Barney Helmick.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. Heidi Hansen, Economic Vitality Director. Barney thinks he's hiding, but he's right there. I just want to thank the staff that came out. We have a lot of airport folks that are with us today. They came from the airport. I don't know who's watching the airport, but I'm sure somebody is. But at any rate, it gives me great pleasure to recognize Barney. And as you can see from this first title, he has been here since August 2010. Now through April 2023. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about Barney's work history. It includes capital projects, acquiring airport vehicles, staffing changes and additions, improving services, participating in organizations, and his list just goes on and on and on. So as far as capital projects, this is just a short list, quite honestly, of some of the things that Barney has worked on. When he began at the airport, and only up to 2 years ago, it was just Barney and an administrative assistant. Just Barney and an admin. I'm not kidding you. So as you can imagine, adding capital projects and getting them completed from start to finish was no easy task. Because he had TSA, airport tenants, FAA issues, and much more to handle on a day-to-day basis. So, taking a project like repaving and closing down the runway for 7 days put everyone up in arms. But Barney remained calm, and he got it done. Replacing gates, and oh boy, did we replace gates, would put people in the worst moods because it disrupted them coming and going. But again, Barney remained calm and got it done with his team. We changed the badging system. It was required. It took so long to change that badging system, but Barney and his team got it done. They repaired high-density altitude signs. They began the airport-paid parking lot, and they partnered on the 31.45-acre parcel, which was first for sale, now it's for lease, and it's been going on for 2 years. But again, Barney remained calm. And again, this is just a very small list of some of the capital projects that I can remember that he's been part of. One that is most notable, though, is the Muffin Monster. Yes, I said Muffin Monster, because when we were adding routes, they were going to be longer in duration, and the longer the flight, the longer flights required a need to dispose of waste appropriately. So here comes the Muffin Monster. Again, Barney took so much ribbing on this, he didn't even want to mention the name to people, because they would say, Muffin Monster, what is that? What does it do? Do you seriously need to buy that thing? And add more pain to the subject, when people would Google the Muffin Monster, you actually see these technical pictures, and then you see this. A mascot. It has a mascot. And they have a stuffed animal that you can buy. I don't know about you, but I think it's creepy, but I know that it gets the job done, and it's a strong thing. But I think Barney will like to say that as one project he's glad he will be saying goodbye to. Vehicles. In order to maintain the runway, the airport hangar areas, to travel for conferences and much more, you have to have reliable vehicles. Barney, along with his staff and our contract and grants manager, Stacy BK, they acquired numerous grants that enabled us to get better snow equipment, better airport rescue firefighting vehicles, and more. The planning meetings, they were long, they were intense, and they had to plan 5 to 10 years out. So you might think this is easy, but it takes a lot of experience that Barney has to know the needs of running an airport and what they will be for our future. Barney and team even introduced hybrid vehicles to our airport fleet, and they installed an electric charging station near the terminal. So this is the before picture when Barney's in a pretty good mood about the electric charging station. And now this is after, where Barney has to go out and every day tell people to stop parking there all night long. They can only charge and go, and then they need to park in the parking lot, but they don't want to do that. So I am sure Barney is very happy that is another duty that he gets to mark off the list. Staffing. So remember when I said it was just Barney and one admin specialist forever at the airport? Thankfully, our city manager, Greg Clifton, he listened. And Barney was able to add more ARF staff, an airport programs manager, and an airport communications manager to the airport team. And soon, a facilities maintenance worker, we hope. And he added more training opportunities for all staff. Barney really wanted them to go out to training and have the ability to learn as much as they could so they could operate our airport efficiently. So with the additional staffing, I like to say, Barney's calmer. I mean, this is a great picture of how Barney is now at work because he has so much staff. Barney, thank you so much for letting me do that to you. I appreciate it. I actually laughed when I saw that. I was like, it's an amazing picture. In way of organizations, Barney served on the Southwest chapter of American Association of Airport Executives in many roles. He was on airline attraction, he was on transportation security, he was on the tower program, and more. Barney could have worked at Discover Flagstaff even. He was constantly selling the destination. He made a huge impact for our community by bringing 2 AZAA annual conferences to Flagstaff during off seasons. So big for us. The amount of hotel rooms, restaurant and bars that received foot traffic with these conferences was huge impact to our city. He also received many prestigious awards. In 2014, he received the President's Award and was named Airport Executive of the Year in 2015. And he received several city manager awards. I'd like to say the list is impressive. I also like to say Barney was never afraid. He was well known in that group. He was never afraid to take the mic and share his expertise with others. You can see them just intently listening to him. I think it could be the fact that there was such a sugar rush going on because I've never seen more massive piece of cake in my life. And Barney doesn't even eat dessert. So I just want to tell you, Barney is well known. I went to many conferences with him, and these people would stop me and they'd tell me how well liked he was and how smart he was. During Barney's tenure, several important documents and plans were created. We were required to fulfill many of these, and he never let us miss any deadlines. We have an active sustainability plan for the airport, as well as a 20-year airport master plan. These are all guiding documents for the airport. We're also working on getting other ones completed, like the airport drainage system. Barney doesn't even want me to talk about drainage. Because as you will see on this slide, the areas in green are just a few of the drainage problems that we have at the airport. So I will tell you, Barney will now have no more sleepless nights when it rains and it snows. But I will tell you, we will definitely tackle these problems and we will get them taken care of. He is a little bit tired of me when I say, Barney, what are we going to do about the ice? What are we going to do about the ice? And he's like, we're working on it. So at any rate, we're working on it. But Barney no longer has to worry about it. And as far as services, the work that Barney has done to get additional air service has been nothing short of fabulous. When I became the Economic Vitality Director, he took me on an airline speed dating conference for the first time, and I quickly knew what was missing to achieve employment increases. How do you get employment increases? You have to fill seats. How do you fill seats? You have to market to your residents, your businesses, and your visitors. So we got to work. Barney handled all the airport talk, and I put together several marketing campaigns with Discover Flagstaff, and I think you remember them well. Fly Flagstaff first, and then we got more, individual, and then we talked about I always fly Flagstaff first. And in less than 3 years, we got American Airlines to offer an LAX route on Saturdays, and United to offer a Denver route. Barney likes to say these routes failed, but I will not let him say that because we had promising numbers and we filled seats. We cannot control the need for pilots and crews, and we have to pivot when they pivot. So I will tell you, it is a success. We will continue to secure new and additional service, don't you worry, and I will be sure to tell Barney so that we can make him proud. Barney also supported area businesses like Swiss Travel Center, Wiseman Aviation, and Peabody. He supported organizations and shared information about the airport so that they would know more about us and they would hopefully in turn fly Flagstaff first. Barney also has a very soft place for our youth, our future of aviation, as they are the pilots and crews we need. One event he welcomed to the airport was Thunder Over Flagstaff. It's a one-day event, as you all know. We see a lot of activity, and we get over 5,000 people exposed to the airport in hopes that they will fly regularly, and young people, we hope, will take an interest in aviation. But airports and noise are a common theme, so I am very sure that Barney is happy to stop answering questions on FAA flight paths and noise. So if working in all these areas I mentioned wasn't enough, Barney had to field questions from the press all the time. The good and the bad. Sometimes the reporter got the story right, and sometimes they just got it wrong. No matter, Barney was always front and center and sharing the news. They talked about our capital projects, our routes, or lack thereof. They talked about parking, and they have even been talking about our new website, FlagstaffAZ.com. Barney has done a great job fielding all of it, and he even had a smile if they got it wrong. But the one that I bet he's the most proud of is what we just had this week, where the Arizona Daily Sun recognized him in a very large article, and they talked about how he was poised to retire. I hope if you have not read it that you will take some time to read it. It is very impressive, and I'm very proud that they would take this time to recognize Barney. And when he wasn't doing all these amazing things that I just spoke about, here's his lighter side that I'm sure a lot of you have never got to see. When Barney would be asked to send someone like an executive assistant a headshot for work, the jokester that he is, this is what he would send. So I, as a jokester, said, let's use it. It might have showed up somewhere a time or two. When I would go to the airport, Barney always had this item with him, all the time. Barney carried this mug around like it was an appendage. He used this mug so much that the writing actually came off. It started being disgusting. I will just say, Barney, I'm very sorry. It was nasty that for one birthday, I got him a new one. But I mean, come on, someone that's been in aviation 35 years, you're gonna have a mug like this. And Barney's side job, Barney's gonna kill me on this one. Anyway, but Barney's side job, I don't think you all know. This is Barney's beard. He grew this out, and I joked with him one time that he should play Santa. He was actually asked that year to play Santa, and he couldn't turn them down because he has a deep care for the youth. So I'm pretty sure that if Barney gets bored at home, he has a seasonal career ahead of him. And I'm also sure that he did not expect that I would hold on to this photo, I think, for the last 5 years. And I held on to it for just this moment. A little bit more about Barney. Some things that you don't know that are very impressive is he is a pilot. He's a scuba diver. He is a trivia whiz, and he loves to play darts. He also now owns a tricycle Harley Davidson that I'm sure he'll be using during his retirement so that he can go to lots of places and visit, and of course, he can enjoy our own Flagstaff roads. This is a word all public servants, Barney included, have in their everyday vocabulary. Yes. Well, now Barney has added this one. He no longer has to say yes. So Barney, I'm giving you your own button. You are allowed to say no now. I have to still say yes, but you can say no. And I wanted to share with you, how does somebody who's done all these amazing things handle stress for the past 13 years running this airport? Well, Barney would call me and he would tell me about the issue, and then he would always start off telling me all the things about it and what he knows from the past, and then we'd brainstorm on solutions, and then he would never forget to end the conversation with, I only have 2,906 days left, 14 hours, 12 minutes, and 23 seconds until I retire. This process went on for 8 years. So you can imagine when he actually did say he was going to retire, that I asked him like several hundred times, "Are you serious?" Well, sadly, he was. He was serious. So I hope that this gave you a glimpse on Barney's 13-year career, 13 years at the City of Flagstaff, and all he did to continue to keep us moving. He weathered many ups and downs and showed up for work every day. In fact, he was my only director that had to come into the office every day during COVID because the airport never shut down. And he never complained. He will be missed for his 35 years of aviation expertise, his wisdom, his smile, his sense of humor, his willingness to always be a team player, and occasionally I will even miss his grumpiness. I can't thank Barney enough for everything. It's your time to hand the reins over to the airport team, Barney, so that we can do the rest of the work. And I would love for you, Barney, to come up here so we can give you some awards, and I do think we have some public participation. So we give out a City of Flagstaff Retirement Award, and it basically is from Greg Clifton, the city manager. Greg. And it just says, "Thank you for your commitment and dedication over the past 13 years. Your contributions have been instrumental to the success of our organization." And that is true to form, Barney. Thank you. So for you, you do get to say no now. All for you.
Not yet.
And Mayor, I think that you have something. Did Sean bring that down for you?
He did, and before you use your no button, I'd like to ask you to come up here and stand in the center. And turn around and face the audience, please. And could I have airport staff come down here too and stand with Barney? And any other city staff from Barney's circle of influence.
Carol, would you like to join them? Right here, Carol. Okay. All day, girl.
And then council, can you find a spot down here and join us? you should join too.
Claire, right now.
Oh, did she think she'd get out of it by holding a phone? Okay. You have heard from Heidi Hansen the wonderful things that Barney has accomplished these past 13 years running our Flagstaff Pulliam Airport. After serving a long career in aviation, over 34 years, it is obvious he is an expert in the industry and has been a true leader in Arizona. A key to the city is a symbol of freedom of the city, meaning people are awarded to come and go freely. We hope that while Barney enjoys this next chapter in his life, which involves a lot of travel, that he will continue to return home to Flagstaff, a place he so fondly refers to. And on your travels, Barney, we hope that you will continue to invite others to visit, discover, and grow here. Please help me congratulate Barney on a career well served. Can you get us all? Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yes, yes.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members past and present, City Manager Clifton, my left-hand holder, Stacy BK, my right-hand holder, and the person who kept me in line for all those years, Heidi Hansen. Thank you to the airport staff. That was a long list of things that were put up there, and I can assure you, not one of them did I do by myself. I'm just one employee amongst the hundreds that have served the city for the last 13 years. Many of them had direct impacts on these projects, others indirect. By indirect, I mean we have city staff that come out and plow the streets to allow us to plow the runways. Everybody in this city made those happen. So these accolades are not just for me, but for all the hundreds of city employees, outside city employees, and staff that have helped us accomplish so much in this time. So thank you very much. Okay.
I think it's safe to say that Barney will be missed by many, many people.
Very true, Mayor. I think you have a public participation card. Is Carol still here?
I don't, but come on down, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Miriam Carol Curtis, and I am a member of the Airport Commission and a citizen of Flagstaff and a homeowner here. And thank you for your time, and thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, staff, everything you all do to assure that Flagstaff is a great place to live and work. I first met Barney. It was my privilege, actually, to be asked to do something called True Colors for city employees. And that's where I met Barney, and I learned, you might not believe this, but Barney's green. Take a look at him. It's kind of hard to tell, but Barney's green. And what that means in colors is he's strategic, he's innovative, he's a planner, and he's a builder of teams. And so since one of my jobs at Coconino County was to do economic development, I knew I had to work with this guy who managed the airport, because the airport is a wonderful part of our quality of life and the economic stability and future of the city of Flagstaff. So thank you very much to Barney for what he does and for what you all do. That's all.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah. All right. Moving down To item number 7, April work anniversaries.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Shannon Anderson, your Senior Deputy City Manager. I have for you this afternoon our April work anniversaries, so we'll go ahead and start celebrating all of these individuals. Our first is Shane McCall. He's one of our library specialists, part of our Economic Vitality Work Group. Pamela Packard is also another one of our library specialists. Both of them are celebrating their 5-year work anniversaries with our city. Alexandra is an administrative specialist, also working at our library, celebrating 5 years. John Castaneda is one of our police officers, celebrating his 5th work anniversary. Similar is Adam Williams, another one of our officers. Moving on to our 10-year work anniversaries, we have Michael Dunning. He is one of our mechanic lead workers, which is part of Fleet Services in our Public Works Division. We have Ryan Priest, who's one of our officers at our Flagstaff Police Department, celebrating 10 years as well. And then 15-year work anniversaries, we have Becky Cardiff. Becky is our Development Services Manager, has led a bunch of huge and impactful projects within community development. Reason I share a little bit more with you is I learned recently that Becky's last day will be Friday. So we're really excited that she's chosen to stay with our organization for the 15 years, but certainly will be very sad to have her leave the organization. She's done some incredible work. Much of that was moving things online when COVID happened. She was a big part of that. Making sure that folks have what they need. So she will be missed, and congratulations to Becky. Continuing on 15 years, we also have Carlos Leva Duarte. He's one of our police sergeants. And for 20-year anniversaries, we have Ben Otero. He's one of our recreation officials over in our pros division. And then we move on to our 25 years plus. You might recognize this guy. We refer to him as RTAD, or sometimes the money man, but Rick Tatter's been with our city for 28 years. Started his career in April of '95. Has received numerous awards recognizing his performance in going above and beyond, exhibiting our values. He received his first quality service increase in 2002 and another in 2014. He was recognized as a wonderful, outstanding worker in 2006, and again in 2012 twice, and in 2016. He received a City Manager's Excellence Award in 2013 and 14, and was our Leader of the Year in 2019. His staff shared some quote with us, so we wanted to pass that along to you all as well. Rick is a supportive, caring director. He's solution-focused and works very hard to ensure the city is financially stable. He's very supportive of his team and staff to ensure they have what they need to be successful and to do their best for our community. Another is Rick's leadership and knowledge and hard work are all of worthy praise. He receives as he celebrates his 28th work anniversary. He makes being part of team management services enjoyable, fun, and rewarding. So Rick leaves no stone unturned when diving for dollars as part of our budget process for sure. Here he's showed watering his money tree, which we often talk about in reference as a budget team. So we're so excited that Rick's been here for 28 years, and we really enjoy working with him. So congratulations, Rick. I don't know if you're online or in the room. Do you want to say a few words? There he is. Hi, Rick.
Hey, everyone. I wasn't planning on saying any words, but thank you for the recognition. Thank you for the kind words and thoughts, and appreciate it.
Thanks, Rick. All right. We're also celebrating Mike Brem, who works at our downtown library. He started when there was no East Flagstaff Community Library, and the library had 6 standalone computers. Since then, he's been part of every single technology advancement in our libraries. He's been part of adding a new library to the district, renovating existing libraries, and expanding the library computer network, to over 450 internet computers, so from 6 to 450. Quite a feat there. Among his recent accomplishments are implementing ScanX public scanners at the libraries and coordinating the integrated library system enhancements. He supports the public computer labs as well as the staff computing environment. His overall success is based on his technology skills, but just as importantly are his people skills. While the computer profession has largely moved towards each person specializing in one area, he's continued to be a generalist to be able to help as a valuable asset for the library IT team. The downtown Flagstaff Library was the first public library in Arizona to offer internet access to the public in 1994. An early local internet service provider, InfoMagic, gave the library one personal computer with a 14.4K modem. Mike was asked to make a presentation about this at the Arizona Library Association conference that year, and other public libraries soon followed. Such were Mike's early contributions to the city and to our library, and we thank him for his years and dedication. Mike, I didn't know if you were online. Pause for a moment. All right. Well, congratulations to you, Mike. And we're going to finish the presentation with one more Mike. This is actually Michael Stress. He works in Public Works. He's been with our city for 30 years. During this entire time, he has worked in Public Works. He continues to be the backbone of streets operations and leadership. He's looked up to by all Public Works because of his knowledge, his devotion, and his commitment to success in everything he works on. Mike stepped in as one of the city's incident management team members. He was an operations section chief last year, where his leadership shined brighter than ever. Mike's willingness to take on new tasks while developing the next level of operators and leaders throughout the city is absolutely amazing. We're honored to have him on our team and would like to congratulate Mr. Stress on his 30 years. Thanks again, Council, for your time and attention today. We'll see you in May to celebrate those terrific employees as well.
Thank you, Shannon. All right, moving down to item number 8, City Manager Report.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Thank you, Shannon, for that wonderful recognition of all of our work anniversaries. I will continue on with some recognition here within my report, and I'm just touching on a few things. The report is there for your reading enjoyment. As always, we give you some behind-the-scenes updates, and then this report will also be followed by some quick updates from community development, including the housing section, and water services and economic vitality. Thanks for bearing with us here. Fire Department, you have the mission and values as recently rolled out. They're on the front page. And a nice update and follow-up to the last report where we talked about Zoll monitor training. And you have a very nice narrative in there and a photo as to what that involves. In human resources leadership, Lancaster leadership has been assisting in providing supervisor performance training for the upcoming implementation of our pay for performance pay structure. And we're excited about that. It's very much a work in progress, but the journey has started and you'll be hearing more about that. Moving on to police, this is great news. The second High Country Police Academy has commenced on April 3rd. We have, at least as of the time of this reporting, 10 new officers participating. That academy is off to a great start. I want to give congratulations to Officer Danny Warden on his Life Safety Award. He responded to a call on a possible drug overdose and was informed of the circumstances. He administered Narcan and remained with the individual until medical personnel arrived. His quick actions helped save this individual's life. Thank you, Officer Danny Warden, for that. Public Works, if you haven't noticed, the street sweepers have been operating 24/7. It is becoming evident there's so much in the community, debris and cinders from a very long winter, a lot of snowfall, but we're seeing progress, and I want to extend props to the many new operators and existing operators who are out there helping to get our community ready for spring and summer. Also want to, we just had a wonderful recognition of Barney and his great service to the airport. We also recently celebrated the retirement of Greg Conlon, and even though he's not here to be recognized, want to thank him for his wonderful service to the community. He will indeed be missed. Next, shifting gears, this is very recent news. I'm going to ask that Christine Cameron and Stacy BK and also Kate Morley, if she's with us either in person or online, if they can be present to give you a little bit of the background behind the reporting here. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but we received notice of a rather significant grant that's going to help us with our Downtown Mile grant match. This is great news, and look who we have here.
Look at who we got.
Yes,
we got
please.
the team, A-team here. Stacy Breckman, Grants, Contracts, and Emergency Management Director. We had a great opportunity. ADOT has what's now AZ Smart Match Advantage Rural Transportation Grant. And what they're doing is matching a number of grants in the state. They, MetroPlan, worked with us in collaboration with Christine. We put together the application. Your staff at MetroPlans was great. They supported it. They reviewed it. We all worked together and got that submitted. And I'm going to then just say we hit submit, and I'm going to let them talk about what the ADOT board discussed, and then let Christine bring it home.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Kate Morley with MetroPlan. The state board had a great discussion on the application. I think they definitely understand the value of the Downtown Mile project and the award of the infrastructure funds, and we're very impressed by that. This application is awarded by the State Transportation Board, and so providing comment at the board meeting is important, and so I'd like to thank Councilmember McCarthy for joining me and Winslow to provide that comment. They had a really robust discussion. They weren't able to award the full ask of $6 million, but they did invite us to apply again and request more, so that was a really great door opening for us. And with that, I'll let Christine.
Yeah, so that opportunity may come to us after the first of the fiscal year in July to go ahead back to the board for the other $3 million. So fingers crossed on that. And I think council is aware that our match on the Downtown Mile is $12.8 million, and this $3 million goes into that, and we'll relieve some of those funds back to 419, stormwater, and other transportation projects. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll continue. Thanks for allowing me a little off script there, but it was wonderful to get that news. What a great team effort. I won't bore you with my updates on the many meetings that have been going on, but I do want to bring to your attention back to the arena of employee recognition. You'll find a very nice copy of excerpts out of a newsletter coming from Northern Arizona University, the Master of Public Administration newsletter with a nice director's update, and then nice Public Service Award recipients, one of whom is our own Stacy Salzberg, receiving that award for representing the class of 21. She graduated then with her Master's in Public Administration. She has been running at a fast pace ever since then, applying the many talents from her academic credentials now in her practice as a city clerk, but more significantly and more recently as a director of the Communication and Civic Engagement Division. So major props to Stacy for that prestigious award. Yes. Finally, can I queue up the other newsworthy item? I shared this by an email yesterday, but want to point out that we have filled our Deputy City Manager position. Joanne Keene will be joining the city in June. We're so excited. She accepted our offer. Everything has been buttoned up. We're just elated to have her be a member of the leadership team. She will be busy between now and then working with us on a lot of housekeeping matters, but the important thing here is we have filled that vacancy, and it has been vacant for some time, but it has been very admirably filled by the duties of and services of Heidi Hansen. We are grateful to Heidi for what she has done for the organization, doing double time over the last year and a half. So we welcome Joanne. We thank Heidi, and the transition will, we think, be very seamless. With that, I will conclude my report and turn it over for some presentations. We have a few of them. We promise to be brief. Community development, then we will hear from water services, and then we'll finish up with economic vitality. I have in my hand a gift certificate for a local coffee shop. For all of our presenters who can keep their presentations to under 5 minutes.
All right.
You get one of these. So Dan, we'll start with you.
This
Thanks.
is a new challenge I wasn't aware of until right now.
Do we get the gift cards if they go over?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. My name is Dan Folk. I'm the Community Development Director. So in your packet today, we do have a monthly report. It actually covers the first 3 months of building activity in community development, as well as a housing newsletter. So I'll touch on some of the highlights of what's in the packet. One of the things I like to look at in terms of tracking development activity and interest is our pre-application meetings and our concept plans. So you can see in the first quarter we had 21 pre-application meetings. These are free meetings that our current planning staff offer. They're pretty much every Friday. It's a great way for folks with a project to get some initial information, what's going to be required, what's the process, what are the permits, etc. Will there be zoning requirements? And so again, having 21 of those in the first 3 months, I think shows we've still got a real strong community and a lot of interest in projects in Flagstaff. I'll mention the Neighborhood Partnership Coalition. This is being led by Valedia Chase. She holds that position between NAU and the city. Some community development staff, along with other city staff, participated last week at the first one of those Neighborhood Coalition meetings. Mark Revis gave updates on neighborhood planning, and we also answered questions on code compliance. You've got a great summary of the first 3 months of Planning and Zoning Commission. One of the things that caught my eye was a conditional use permit for an 18-hole mini golf course. So it's surprising we don't have mini golf in Flagstaff, but it's coming. I'm told it's going to be a very technical course, so get out your putter for that. We've given a summary of items that came before City Council. I won't review those with you since you all lived through them and participated, so thank you for that. We're continuing updates on our regional plan. So in the month of March, we did a lot of scenario planning. We had great participation. We've got an up-to-date webpage, so we encourage you to go to the newsletter, click on that link, and see what's coming next for the regional plan. But we're going to continue with that process and our scenario planning consultant. We've got links to the 10-year housing plan and the progress report, so we'll continue to provide those. People can track what's going on with housing. You've had a lot of real estate items in front of you in the last few months. Real estate joined community development a couple years ago, and the workload has definitely ramped up, and it's mostly tied to capital projects, so it's really exciting. We have, you just went through your retreat on capital, right? There are lots of capital projects, lots of real estate needs. And so Bryce Doty has been really busy with that, and we've been getting great support from other team members as well as some contract services. So we'll continue to work on all those acquisitions for the important capital projects. In terms of permitting and valuation, I would say we're pretty much on track with last year. I noticed there's an error in one of the charts we have here, but really I would say 2023 is really mirroring 2022 right now in terms of permit activity and valuation, which was a very busy year. Not quite as busy as 21, but I would say the building trades are still very strong here in Flagstaff. And then we have our code compliance report. Again, spent a lot of time in the first 3 months on sidewalks. You remember we had some snow this year. And then graffiti is another one that we respond to quite often. And then let me just touch on a few things from the housing section newsletter. So as you know, April was Fair Housing Month. You provided not a resolution, but a proclamation declaring April as Fair Housing Month. The housing team hosted a fair housing workshop on April 12th. I believe it was in this room. We had some great partners supporting us in that. I think we mentioned here a few weeks ago that our housing team was given an award at the Arizona Housing Coalition Annual Conference. That was back in March. And they were given the Innovations in Housing Award for the 10-year housing plan. And then the last thing I want to mention is this really exciting project that Housing Solutions of Northern Arizona is undertaking in partnership with the city. It's going to be on some city land. They've been awarded some funding from the Arizona Department of Housing to do 11 three-bedroom rental units. And so this is over in the Isabel area. I believe this was a site that we had considered for the scattered site projects that never really came to be. And so Housing Solutions of Northern Arizona is going to pick that up and build those units on that site. So that's really exciting. 33 units that will be all income qualified for folks. And then the last thing I want to mention is, I believe Shannon mentioned in her employee recognition, Becky Cardiff celebrating 16 years with the city. Becky has decided to move on. She's going to do something next in life, so Friday is her last day. But I wanted to acknowledge Becky. She's been an incredible team member. She's our development services manager, so she runs the front counter. Pretty much everything that comes through community development engineering comes through that counter. She has an incredible gift for customer service. She's always served all of our clients very well, all of our applicants. She's kind of the go-to person, I know, when people had questions about a permit or what was happening. So we certainly will hire someone, but we will never be able to replace Becky. And then we're all going to miss her very much. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank Becky. Do you have any questions for me? How did I do on time? I think I'm under 5 minutes. Was I over?
But I was grateful that they didn't buzz you.
Yeah, we did not buzz, yes.
I didn't get the hook. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mayor. Can I continue here? Next, we have water services. We'll get an update there, and then we'll go on to economic vitality.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Lisa Dean, Management Analyst with Water Services. April is also Water Awareness Month, as I'm sure you're quite aware, and our conservation team has been very busy all month long, having activities, plannings, seed bombs, all sorts of great things. They have a full steam ahead event this weekend coming up, and I hope you're able to participate in some of those. Some items I'd like to make note. What you have in front of you, or the report, is for February and March. Krista Snow, our lab supervisor for potable water, received a WOW award for her work on a Water Resources Dam report. This is something traditionally done through engineering, but our team really works together. We don't really see the boundaries of this is my job or this isn't my job. The big recruitment plus for us in this time was getting our full-time permanent director in February. Unfortunately, our water reclamation plant manager also left, Jim Huckel. He's already been replaced by Troy Dagenhart, who has really put his time in the trenches taking care of the reclamation plants. With all of the snow and what they call I&I, which is an infiltration and inflow that we have had, the water, they've really managed all of the flows for our water reclamation. So we don't even notice, the residents don't even notice the changes that we manage on a daily basis. Again, red compliance. If you probably are aware of, Fox Glen Park had a sanitary sewer overflow because of the low spot in the drainage systems, and that was managed really well as a good collaborative effort between parks and the water services. The UCMRs, there's another ADEQ is doing some testing on contaminants of emerging concern. They focus on PFOS and PFAS, and it's a multi-year program, and so we're starting to test areas and wells as part of that program, and you'll hear more about that. Another EPA directive that we're working on is a lead and copper research rule that's coming into effect soon. We are lucky enough to partner with NAU AmeriCorps. We have a great AmeriCorps student that we're going to look to hire over the summer and then have another one in fall to help us with that work, the research to find out where our lead and copper lines are for compliance when it comes into effect in, I think it's 2024. Moving to stormwater, you hear so much on stormwater. I won't go on over that. I know that Francis Short Pond has been scheduled to be dredged, and it's still overflowing. So that's going to be put on hold. I can mention, though, that there was a $1.5 million congressional directive support money for FEMA property acquisitions. So these are right-of-way acquisitions for some of the stormwater management. This land will expand open space and parkland as well as be used for flood mitigation. So it'll have multi-use and multi-purposes. Our stormwater team is also presenting at conferences on hydraulic modeling. This is really important with some of our professional consultants because what this does is this puts these literatures, these peer review papers into the public domain in the professional associations, and it has them looking at it, and it kind of puts our mark on what we're doing and how we're managing the hydrologies and the studies on those flows. Water distribution is having challenges with trucks, aging trucks that are breaking down. Luckily, we have 2 new trucks that we have that are getting retrofitted with the bodies, with the chassis bodies, and a new vacuum trailer is now in operations for them that replaced an older unit. I'm sure everyone has noticed Upper Lake Mary is overflowing. Everyone is quite happy. That's all you hear about. 3 billion gallons of inflow into Upper Lake Mary in 1 week. I mean, that is a record, and it's still going. It's stormwater reported that we still have 34 inches of water that's in snowpack, so we're not done yet. That's good news, and water production is ramping up to do surface water production, which is our least expensive water other than what's up on the inner basin. And the inner basin, of course, is being worked on. Again, I won't go into that because you hear about that already a lot on those projects. You'll notice in your report there's over a full page of work being done in the water reclamation plants. There is a huge focus to bring the water reclamation plants, the equipment up to current standards, to bring it into working new equipment, and we're using every trick under our hat to use federal, state, and any other funding we can find to match to be able to bring those designs and those ideas into fruition. I talked about water resources, and I think that's about it. Do I have any questions?
Doesn't look like it. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. And lastly, we have Heidi with Economic Vitality. And Heidi, we haven't had a winner yet.
Well, it's going to happen, and I'd love that timer because I am not going over 5 minutes. I even highlighted and I condensed the report, so whatever you have in there is a lot more than what I'm going to speak about. As far as the airport, we wanted to again thank our crews for all the work they did with the heavy snow that caused a lot of work for them. We also wanted to thank them for the recertification trainings that they have been going through. They have What they do is they actually create these fires and they simulate if there was an actual fire at the with a plane or what have you. It is crazy to be around. I suggest you ask Tim Skinner when you could participate sometime. We continue to do CARES Act projects. The terminal fire sprinkler system is going to be taken care of. I told you about that. And the airport paid parking system, we are shooting for Memorial Weekend for that to open up. We will remind you and give you some talking points as well as for our commissioners. Employments were down. Well, we have a flight that's no longer here, so it's going to happen, but we actually did beat 2020 figures, which you want to beat 2020 figures, right? Community investment, we're doing traffic signal cabinets, and I think it's kind of cool. You get to see a few of the pictures of some of the things that you're going to be seeing around town to add to the ones that we already have. We have added flowers and enhanced landscaping, not only to downtown, but other areas of town. And we did beautification and arts action grants, and you're going to be seeing a lot more things in town with those grants. Park Flag welcomed a new team member, Russ Williams. I met him at a meeting the other day. He's delightful, and he's going to be a great ambassador. And our numbers were down just slightly, 0.6% decrease compared to March 2022, and it was because of snow. Airport attraction, we have two companies, and they are about hand in hand with Flagstaff's carbon neutrality plan. So Advanced Battery Manufacturing looks at sustainable batteries that are designed to power new electric vehicles, and Carbon Crushers is a company that will determine if their product can be used to sustainably repair roadways. I know you're excited. We will keep you updated. Business One Stop Shop website is in full swing. It is not yet ready for our developers, but we are working on making this system process a lot easier. It's going to be even harder now that Becky is leaving, but we will get it done. And In-N-Out has done demolition over at the Pizza Hut. We have just started the Innovate Waste Challenge. All the submissions are in, and I'm sure some of you are being asked to participate in the end result of that, and we hope you will. And then the mayor did talk, I believe it was the mayor talked about the STEM program a little bit, and we were part of that. That was exciting. Library continues to see great numbers. Circulation's up 26%, door count up 64%, the computer use is up 88%, and the number of programs are up 85%. And people are attending our libraries at 82%. We had a writer's meet and greet. I know Councilmember Aslan, as a writer, you like to hear these things, and that went really well. We had 21 attendees. Tourism is down for the month of March. First time you've seen this in a very long time, and that's because last March was insane. We literally had conversations with Little America General Manager Fred Reese, and he said it was the best March he's had since he's ever been at the hotel. So it makes sense that numbers are going to continue to be a little bit hard to beat, but we're still doing our work, and now we are going into fire safety modes. You'll see a lot of that. 14 print articles, 136 digital articles, 9 procured stories, and 6 media assists all in 1 month. Some of the great stories were about the most unique attractions. We are one of them. Best places to ski on spring break. And then we also talked about best pizza in Flagstaff. We had 1 film permit in the month. And as you can see, our film commissioner attended the Virtual Film USA, which filmed in Tucson, which was meeting with Film Tucson, Film Phoenix, and the Arizona Commerce Authority. So we were doing stuff in film. Domestic sessions were up 46% and international sessions up. We had a great post for social media. It was about the snowy bridge near the library. International trade had London visitors, and our visitor services did 261 pint glasses for the Flagstaff Brewery Trail. That isn't impressive. I don't know what is. But there's a lot of people out there drinking. Hopefully they're walking. And then creative services, we did a lot of things with Wipe the Smile on Your Face for our restaurants. We did Water Awareness Month, and we are talking BBB soon. We are inviting you to our National Ecotourism Week, Wednesday, May 10th, 10:30 to 12:30. I hope that you will join us. It is after a meeting that I think you all have. And that's where we pick up trash and we help our neighborhood. I'm done.
Well,
thank you.
Heidi, I'm wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on the best pizza in Flagstaff.
You didn't say if it included questions. You just said that I had to be done. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm talking about. Thank you. Any questions?
Doesn't look like it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Heidi, I did have a question. Just curious, quick update about the finishing of the project here in front of the library.
Yes.
You've got that nailed down.
We're hoping Jeremy DeGator in community development is doing an excellent job, and he has been dealing with our contractors. They're new to this environment. Again, it's procurement stuff, and we had to give them a little bit of a notice because of the fact that there was a lot of snow, and they had to clear away snow just to work. But we're hoping like the beginning of June that this will be completed. And everybody can still enter the back of the library, and it's ADA compliant to enter the back of the library and get through. You go through the children's area, and then you can get to reference and all of that. But we're getting close. But exciting news. I can add this because he asked me a question. The airport art project the fence is going in this week and next week. It's going to be fabulous. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, just so you know, I'm a winner. All right.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. That concludes the report. And while we have a little bit of fun from time to time with these challenges, I don't want to in any way diminish the importance of the reports that you are receiving from the divisions who are working very hard for you and for this community. So thank you very much.
Yeah, very great information. Thank you. Moving on to item number 9, consideration and approval of contract, cooperative purchase contract with Motorola Solutions in an amount not to exceed $2,192,163.44 for radio equipment and accessories for numerous city divisions and sections. Staff. Hello, Chief.
Hello, Mayor and members of Council. Good evening. So good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Dan Musselman. I serve as your police chief, and I've got a supporting cast of characters tonight. So fire chief, procurement. Scott, why don't you stand up, please, because people don't know you. So Scott Lynn works for us in NAU. He's our radio technician. And so he's a part-time, half his salary is paid by us, half paid by NAU, and he tells us what to do, what we should do, kind of foresees the future as far as our radio system. So he's kind of our technical expert if those questions come our way tonight. And then Motorola, we have our account manager, Doug Boxbaum, and Jimmy Trevetti, our area account manager. And then I think you know everybody else from procurement and legal, all those that are going to help me out here. So this is a request to spend up to $2,192,163.44 for radio equipment and accessories for numerous city departments and divisions. A little bit of history. In 2010, bond was approved for our public safety radio system. It went out to bid, and Motorola was awarded the contract. The city partnered with NAU to split costs on the original system. And then when we did our last major upgrade in 2020, ASU came on to our system, which split costs even further. The city owns approximately 702 handheld vehicle and base station radios in our inventory. Our older Motorola radios from 2012 are no longer being supported, and those are the ones we want to replace. So we're not replacing all of our radios. The largest users of the radios and radio time spent on our system is the dispatch center at the police department, obviously, because they're dispatching out calls to both police and fire, followed by the police and then fire. The city's requesting to replace 322 out of our 702 radios. Motorola was the selection. It allows us to use existing batteries and chargers on some of the radios we currently have. We're familiar with those radios. There's a lot of value in being consistent. That way, if my radio breaks and I have to grab someone else, I know which button does what. I know where the emergency button is. If we're training new people, we train our police aides. They get the same radios that our officers do. And the radios are very durable. We've dropped them. We've ran over them. Usually they break when you run over them. But we've also sent them to Motorola, and they put them back together in the hard case and given them to us. Fire has also put them through quite a few trials and tribulations with heat and whatnot. We do have some channels that are encrypted. If I pull over Councilmember McCarthy and I'm reading his name and his date of birth over the radio, we don't want him to later be a victim of identity theft, so we do have encrypted channels for some of those things we do. Not all of our channels are encrypted, but several agencies are moving that way. Other considerations, the experience of other public safety agencies feel very strongly about the Motorola radios, and the fire department field tested them, and approximately 83% in their survey supported the use of Motorola radios. They also looked at a study done at a Kansas City Fire Department, and they also found value in the Motorola radios over the main competitor, which is Harris, I believe. This is the contract specifications. It helps me keep track of things. I'm a green person too, so I've got to see it out and about. So the totals of which section, which department, the amount of their quote is, the number of handhelds they're asking for, the number of mobile or vehicle radios, and the number of base stations they're requesting. And then in going through Motorola, we're able to trade in some of the old radios that we will no longer be using. We will receive a trade-in credit of $103,850, and that is guaranteed until the end of April. Installation of, not all the radios need to be installed. The handhelds come pretty much plug and play along with the base units. The vehicle radios, sometimes fleet, city staff does it. Sometimes it's done through other existing contracts and local providers. The procurement for the radios, we reached out to procurement and gave them specific instructions for the radios we were looking for. As far as police and fire, they researched existing cooperative contracts, and we found the most beneficial state cooperative contract. The rest of the city divisions, we went through our fleet manager at the time, Greg Conlon, because he knew how many radios were sitting in a box on a shelf that were no longer useful. He knew what was being deployed in vehicles. He also had a good count of the portables that were out within the city. So he gave us the numbers. We put it together. We met with Motorola. We said, police and fire want these models. The rest of the agencies, they can use a not as technical model. The model that police and fire goes with, as far as the handhelds, run approximately about $10,000, a little less than that. The handhelds that the other city sections and divisions are using run about $5,000. With that, I will turn it over if you have any questions, and I'll call on my team.
Any questions for the chief?
Chief, one of the comments a couple weeks ago was that these radios provide too much functionality for what we need. Can you respond to that?
Yes. Would fire like to go first?
Thank you, Dan. Mayor, members of the council, to answer your question directly, we had options to look at a more enhanced portable radio with more technological capabilities, and we chose not to go that route because we felt that design, durability, and function was what we were really looking for. So the radios that we have are specifically a mirror match of what we've had for the past 10 years. And so there are some key components that we have, upgrades that are giving us the ability to enhance it down the road if we so choose to. But from an overall radio, it's the exact same radio that we've had extreme confidence in for the past 10 years. Nothing else other than some software inside it.
Any other questions, council? All right, please. Do you have any additional, you said you were going to turn it over to your...
Just if you had questions, Mayor and Council, about
Okay.
other aspects of the program. For the police department, speaking to Vice Mayor's comment, so if you look at our police cars right now, we use the Ford Hybrid Interceptor. It's not the most expensive car out there, but it's not the cheapest. We could get Kias or Hyundai, but it works the best as far as functionality. It's got room, it's got space, and every much like our portable radios, every car is set up the same way, so that if my car breaks, I can jump in your car and know exactly where the radio is, where the mobile data computer terminal is, where the first aid kit is under the seat, and where the ballistic vest is in the trunk. So we try and keep everything consistent, and that's what we're trying to do with our radio system. Thanks.
Okay, no further questions from council, but I do have a speaker request. So Kelly Cullen.
Kelly Cullen, 1602 Northeast Street, Flagstaff, Arizona. Hello, council. I represent Niles Radio. We're a local company in Sunnyside since 1954. So this is my second visit to the council to try to convince someone to give me a chance to bid on this deal, on this radio purchase. And so I'll give you some more information. The way I think about the whole situation is that I pay local wages, I pay local housing rates, I own a small business here. However, I can't get the opportunity to bid on a local City of Flagstaff purchase. It's pretty straightforward. This purchase is being sole sourced from outside of our community. This is a $2.2 million purchase, and the justification presentation lacks sole source reasoning. The quotations in this packet right now still include options that are not needed. It still has them in there, resulting in wasted city funds. The local labor and installation involvement is still not clear. There's no specifications or no RFP, and the contract avenue is not the most beneficial, and they admit that. They might pay a little extra. And then look, I totally understand that the police and fire are accustomed to their brand selection. And they will most likely get what they want, regardless of what I say. I guarantee you that. What I'm asking for is at least the opportunity to bid on the other agencies that are lumped into this purchase request. For example, trash trucks and pros vehicles don't require overpriced radios. Anybody can bid on those. These other agencies amount to about 20% of the overall purchase request in this purchase. So at a minimum, please carve out these other agencies out of this public safety purchase and provide an opportunity for local companies to bid and keep 20% of this $2.2 million here in Flagstaff. I shouldn't have to come down here and beg for a chance to bid on our local work. And I appreciate your time, and I got 15 seconds even left. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
I didn't know if you had follow-up questions, Mayor and Council. So.
Any follow-up questions? Councilmember McCarthy.
Could you, for the sake of the public, maybe have somebody from procurement talk about the process that we use to go out for bids, or didn't do that, or what the procurement process was? Just an overview, not every little detail. Thank you.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Patrick Brown, your purchasing director. So for a solicitation, formal solicitation, we develop a scope of what we want, and then we'll post it nationally or even globally for people to submit bids. In this instance, we used a cooperative contract as there was a definite need for a specific radio. So we went to a cooperative, and a cooperative allows us to utilize the public procurement of another agency. In this case, it was the state of Arizona. The state of Arizona did a public procurement process to get that contract in place. They sent it out to everybody nationally and globally. We piggybacked off of that because they had the radios we needed, and they did the public procurement process. You're welcome.
Patrick? I waited until you were almost sitting down.
My apologies.
Could you speak to the request to peel off some of the other divisions and their radio needs as it relates to police and fire?
Mayor, so I can speak generally about that. It would definitely stop the procurement on this because we have definite pricing from Motorola, from the contractor, and we would need to obtain additional pricing or changed pricing from them. I do not know how this would affect our discount. I'm assuming it will, especially since our discount is good through the end of this month in a few days. And I don't know how it would affect our trade-in values, if you will. So peeling it off and going out is, yeah, that's something we can do, but I think it would have an effect on our pricing.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. Patrick. Can you just let us and the public know the opportunity for a local or state or national company to bid on this purchase order or whatever you call it? Is that open to any business?
If we went out for a formal solicitation, it would be. It would be, like you said, national, global, Flagstaff, anywhere. So, yeah, everybody, including Motorola, would be able to submit pricing and a bid on it.
But we didn't because we piggybacked on the state.
Correct. So we're allowed to piggyback because the agency did the public procurement process. They sent it out to everybody. And we found that their procurement process is right in line with the city. And to further go down that road, the city follows a lot of the state procurement code and the state ARS requirements, which they follow as well.
Councilmember Harris.
So that I'm clear, the state did their process, the procurement, and it was available for any business to go out and look at that procurement and bid on it if they wanted to. Is that correct?
That is correct. When they went out for their radio contract, they solicited it nationally, globally, statewide.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have something to add, Chief?
Yes, Mayor and Council, if I could. There will be business out of this for Niles Radio. In talking with Fleet today before the meeting, they told me if a vehicle comes in that needs a new radio, they usually contract with Niles. That's the one that'll pull out the old radio or put the new one in. Sometimes they do it themselves if they have time and space available, but they do get, Niles will get radio, we'll get some business off this contract when the radios come in, as far as installation and some of those types of things.
Thank you. All right, Council. Any other questions? If not, I'm looking for a motion. Councilmember Harris.
Mayor, I would make the motion to approve the cooperative, I think that's what I'm doing, is a state recommended act, staff recommended action, and that is to approve the cooperative purchase contract with Motorola Solutions Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $2,192,163,044 for radio equipment and accessories for numerous city divisions and sections in need of radio replacements, and to authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Wait a minute. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Chief. All right, so adjourning our special meeting and calling to order our work session. Notice is still hereby given to the members of the City Council and to the general public that at this work session, the City Council may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for legal advice and discussion with the city's attorneys. And let's see, where are we? All right, so moving on to item number 2, review of draft agenda for the May 2nd, 2023 City Council meeting. Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. Next week, we're going to be talking about the hospital move, and one of the issues is the height of the hospital building. So I would request that staff tell us how high the buildings, some of the biggest, the tallest buildings are over at NAU, just for comparison. I know that the city doesn't have any authority over NAU, but they have buildings, and so I would ask that we could get a number on that. And maybe we don't know to the exact foot or whatever, but how many stories they are at the very least. So, Mr. Cliff, can somebody research that?
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Okay, and then I have one more. We were going to be talking about the pickleball court issue, and that's been delayed. But I do have a question on that, and I may as well just tell you what it is right now to save time. I'd be interested in knowing how far it is from the existing courts to the nearest neighbors, and then how far it is from the proposed courts to the nearest neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions about the May 2nd council meeting? All right, moving on. Rio de Flag flood control project update.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. My name is Jeremy DeGator. I'm a project manager here at Capital Improvements for the City of Flagstaff. Today I'm going to be giving a brief project update on the Rio de Flag flood control project. A brief outline of this update, we'll talk about the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the many things that we continue to work with and cooperate with them on. We'll give an update on the design and construction status, and then finally I'll turn it over to our real estate manager, Bryce Doty, for an update on the real estate acquisition efforts. I know many on council and many here in the room are very familiar with the Rio de Flag flood control project and what it entails, so I'll keep a brief overview of this project. There are 3 reaches. The lower reach begins down at the Butler Tunnel, which is in the area of Warner Nursery along Butler Avenue, and continues to the north and west, culminating pretty much at where the new downtown connection center is going to be for Mountain Line. The upper reach is where we go north. We cross the BNSF tracks past City Hall along here, going through downtown up to Francis Short Pond, and then extends further up into the Coconino Estates neighborhood. The third reach is the Clay Avenue Wash reach. This diverges at that confluence point by the Downtown Connection Center and goes underground, down Mike's Pike, crosses through the 5 Points intersection, through ADOT right-of-way, and continues along towards crossing Blackbird Roost, Malapai, and ultimately coming back in the same region as BNSF right-of-way behind the West Glen Mobile Home Park and the Mill Pond Apartments. There's going to be several different treatments that happen along these various different reaches. So for example, the lower reach south of the old BNSF Y, that's just to the east of San Francisco, that will be open channel from that point all the way to the east and south by the Butler Tunnel, tying into the terminus of the project. From the Y to the confluence will be an underground box culvert. That box culvert continues both under BNSF tracks and down Mike's Pike into the Clay Avenue wash. That continues all the way up till we get to about Chateau, which is again in the area of that Mill Pond Apartments area, where there'll be a short section of open rectangular box culvert, primarily related to the constraints physically there with right-of-way. As we work to the north from the confluence back at our downtown connection center, once we reach City Hall and north, this is where we reach what we've been calling the composite channel. So this will still be an underground box culvert that carries the large majorities of the flows, but there will be a residual low flow channel that exists on the surface, so there will be continued flows from Francis Short Pond down to City Hall. North of Francis Short Pond will be open channels. There'll be a section that includes a flood wall along a portion of the Coconino Estates property. The ultimate goal of this project is to remove much of the area that we see here that's kind of highlighted from the 100-year floodplain. We will, whenever this project is completed, we will work through that process and update the floodplain maps to remove all of this area from those FEMA floodplain maps. This project has been broken into two separate phases. Phase 1, which is the one that is moving close, is nearest to construction, that we hope to be in construction soon. This is everything that's going to be south of the BNSF tracks. So this is going to be from the Butler Avenue Tunnel on the east side, continuing up to the downtown connection center, and then down Mike's Pike and all the way up to the terminus along the Clay Avenue wash. Phase 2 will be a separate effort that will come later. That will largely be coordinated with the Downtown Mile project, because that suite of projects will really allow the crossing of the BNSF right-of-way. Quick update on the many things that have been going on with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Back on March 17th, we had a visit. The Corps came to town. We were graced with Justin Gay, who is the LA District Deputy Engineer, and Colonel Bolton. They were able to meet with staff, mayor, and council members McCarthy and Matthews at that meeting. We're able to provide an update and let everyone know all of the many things that we continue to work on. Recently, there was a draft supplemental environmental assessment. So this is that SEA document in the second bullet point. This is an effort put on by the Army Corps of Engineers. This comment period wrapped up at the end of March. The Corps did receive a multitude of comments, which they're currently working through. There was a request for an additional public meeting to be able to address some of those comments. The Corps is currently working on that, both the response to comments and setting up that meeting. It will likely be virtual. The city will help support and coordinate that meeting, but it will be an upcoming U.S. Army Corps meeting with the community. There will be an opportunity once we've awarded this contract and we have a contractor on board. There will be public information meetings to allow the community to meet the contractor, to ask the questions about all the things that we expect to happen during this project. So we will have public information prior to the start of the construction of this project. Currently, we're targeting next year for shovels in the ground, and I'll speak to that in a moment. And then largely what we've been working on are meetings. We have really started to escalate the number of these. We are reaching some real critical milestones for this project, and so we meet regularly to talk about the design and the technical aspects of this. We've got multiple coordination meetings set up. We coordinate regularly with the Downtown Mile, with the Lone Tree Overpass teams, because they are literally going to be working in the same areas at roughly the same times. We have coordination meetings related to the real estate effort. We've got a lot of real estate acquisitions underway, and we're continuing to meet regularly on that. And of course, we also are pulling in ADOT. One of our big efforts I'll speak to in a moment is coordinating the effort to get through ADOT right-of-way at that 5 Points intersection. Additionally, we have monthly meetings with the Downtown Connection Center because that is at the area of the confluence. That's going to be a real hub of activity here in the future. And so many, many meetings. Update on where the project stands, both from a design standpoint and a construction. The agency technical review, or as we refer to it, the ATR review, this is essentially the Corps' final design review. This is what allows us to reach final design plans. Currently, this is the schedule for this to go into this review is sometime in June, so early this summer. With that in mind, our current project schedule is to wrap up that final design review and move in and certify the project and be able to move forward to advertise the project later in fall of 2023 with the hope that we would have shovels in the ground in 2024. And this would be for just that phase one. As I mentioned previously, phase two will be several years behind and will be coordinated with all the projects related to the downtown mile. The city continues to work with the Corps on many different design elements. One that I briefly wanted to mention is just City Hall pedestrian access. We are evaluating many multitude of options of how to maintain access here right outside of this council chambers here. One of the items that was up for consideration was ending the low flow channel at Aspen Avenue and actually installing low impact development stormwater features through this alongside City Hall. No decisions have been made, but we continue to evaluate multiple options there. Currently, a big effort is the 5 Points intersection. As I mentioned, this is ADOT right-of-way, and we have to build a rather large box structure, many feet underground, right through one of the busiest intersections in this town. We are currently working through traffic modeling and so on to kind of get a feel for what the phasing is going to look like, how we have to shift lanes around during construction and so on. And so we will work that through with our partners and we will come up with a working solution. The reality, and this was brought up at our budget retreat just a couple of weeks ago, the reality is that the next several years in this town are going to be very busy, particularly downtown. And I think we should all recognize those potential impacts. They're going to be business impacts. There will be traffic impacts. They are going to be at times painful. I think we've all recently lived through what happened when we replaced the bridge just out front of City Hall. You know, I would expect that we will have some short-term closures. There may be longer-term closures. Certainly there will be significant lane restrictions, detours, and reroutes. One of the working models for just making that 5 Points intersection work involves the Lone Tree Overpass being in operation and be able to utilize that as a viable detour route to take some pressure off of the Milton corridor. So I think this was mentioned, but you know, the national symbol of Flagstaff is going to be the traffic cone here, at least for a couple of years. It will be hard, right? And it's not to minimize anyone's experience of what those impacts are going to be, but it is important to start considering that these are going to be significant, but they're necessary. Obviously, we do everything that we can on our side, working with our design teams, working with the contractors to minimize those impacts, but they will be significant, not just for this project, but for others as well. And then finally, the last point on this slide is we continue to work with BNSF on the multiple agreements that we need to do. We've got a construction and maintenance agreement, and then there's the master cooperation agreement. The city has reviewed these and returned comments, and we're working to set up a review meeting with BNSF to move that effort forward. And with that, I'm going to pause and turn this over to our real estate manager to continue.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Bryce Doty, Real Estate Manager. Part of the obligations that the city to our partner, the Corps, is to deliver all the real estate needed for the project. And right here, this represents all of the properties that we need for phase one. So we're talking about 51 different parcels within the city. 21 of those we can deliver today, and that's primarily the ones that are already on public lands that we purchased or throughout the long gestation of this project, we've managed to acquire over the course of the 20 or 30 years. So 21 we can go ahead and deliver. 11 of them are the railroad. Those are going to be handled through that construction management agreement that Jeremy just mentioned. And then we've got 18 leftovers. So those are private owners that we still need to negotiate with and to acquire the rights that we need. We're talking about a couple different rights. A channel improvement easement is the standard estate that the Corps calls this. So that's what we're going to be burdening these properties with. 16 of those are in appraisal review right now. And so we've ordered appraisals, we've received them, we sent them to the Corps for review. And until we get that review back, we're not going to send any offers out because we want to make sure that any of the credit that they will ultimately award us is going to be approved. And so that's where the bulk of these are at. And there's one that is currently in, it's currently in condemnation as a result of the Lone Tree project. So that one is kind of hanging out there that we expect to kind of deliver at the same time that the Lone Tree is going to purchase it as well. And that's really what's happening right now. So as soon as we get those appraisals approved through the Corps, we've got 3 different contract firms lined up to help us with acquisition services because we need to start making sure that we can deliver this in time for the contract advertisement in this fall. So that's kind of the next step is getting all those out. So we've got some help on board to do that. And then once we get all those, we're going to send it all to the Corps and they're going to certify it. And hopefully all that kind of lines up within the contract process. So that's really where we're at in terms of the real estate we need for the project. And turn it back to Jeremy.
That concludes our presentation. We're here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Council questions? Councilmember McCarthy?
Thank you, Mayor. Jeremy, you mentioned that when we're working on the 5 Points intersection that Lone Tree will be considered an alternate route. So could you just give us a very brief overview on the schedule for the Lone Tree project because it ties right into this project?
Great. Christine, do you want to? We have our Lone Tree expert.
Hi, Christine Cameron, Project Manager with City Capital. We anticipate that the bridge will be open by 2026. And so the Corps will start in 2024 down at Butler, down by Warner's Nursery, make their way through south of BNSF property, through downtown, down Mike's Pike. And by the time they hit 5 Points, we're hoping to sync up with that 2026 date.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. This question's for, well, maybe for Bryce, but maybe you can answer them. We had a lot of discussion with Corps last week, and so we talked a lot about the appraisals and stuff. Is there any new updates on how that's moving forward to get support to review the appraisals?
I don't have any definitive updates to provide you except that one of the key things preventing kind of the approval was that the Corps was not talking directly to the appraisers. So we've given that approval to the Corps so that the Corps appraiser is talking to our appraisals, and there's a lot of back and forth to try to answer any of the outstanding questions and concerns that they have directly.
When did that happen?
That happened a few weeks ago.
Additional questions? Councilmember Harris.
I think this question might be for Heidi. Did she leave? I don't know. Okay. Well, I'm just trying to figure out, we know that it's going to be a mess for a couple years, and so I'm just trying to think, can we come up with some creative things that we can do to make things a little bit more bearable for those of us who live in town? Now, we know we can't do a lot for our tourists because they just kind of know to come in on one way or whatever, but for those of us who live here, could we think about how we might, talk to people about, different alternate routes, like I go through campus sometimes because I know that Milton gets kind of crazy at 5 o'clock. So I just cut right across, go down Franklin, hit San Francisco, go over to, so I know how to get around the city. And so I'm just wondering if that might be something kind of fun for us to think about. That's why I was asking for Heidi.
And Heidi indicated that she is here online.
You're so creative,
Mayor?
Heidi. I'm sure you could figure something out.
Sure, Mayor, Councilmember House. I just went upstairs to my office. Definitely, I'll work with Sarah Langley's team in public affairs to make sure that we do that, and we can definitely get creative. What we can do is Discover Flagstaff has a production meeting where we talk about how we market even locally, not just outward. And we could always have Sarah and her team come to one of those meetings and we can work on this together, but happy to do so.
Yeah, I can also commit that we will help with that coordination as needed. And we will be creative and come up with a good way to message and provide alternative routes and so on. So thank you for the question.
All right, I don't see any additional questions, so thank you so much for the update, and thank you to everyone who's working on this project. Looking forward to seeing it move forward.
Thank you.
All right, now we're moving down to item number 4, post-wildfire flooding update.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Ed Shank, Stormwater Manager. Here with our April update for the flood mitigation and flood response. We have some of the familiar faces here today. We'll have a number of folks coming up giving updates on various aspects of the mitigation response and capital improvement projects. So quick overview, we'll start with our Spruce Wash updates. That's that 2019 museum fire area. Then move on to Schultz Creek, so the 2022 pipeline fire. A little update on the snowmelt runoff. And then also we'll be working on the monsoon or summer preparations, and then open it up for discussion and questions. So with that, I will turn it over to Eli Reisner with our capital program to discuss some of the Spruce Wash improvements.
Thanks, Ed. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. Eli Reisner, City of Flagstaff Capital Improvements Project Manager for the Spruce Wash flood mitigation projects. Here to provide an update on the suite of projects. The city has received and reviewed 30% plans for the utilities portions of the Grandview project. Geotechnical services are currently ongoing on the 7 projects and is anticipated to be complete by the end of May. Survey for the suite of projects is nearing completion and is anticipated to be completed by the beginning of May. The project team now consists of Eagle Mountain Construction, who is selected through a qualifications-based selection process out of 5 different construction firms to provide the construction manager at-risk design and construction phase services for the Spruce Wash flood mitigation projects. Shepard Westminster is providing the survey for the 7 project sites. Speedy & Associates is providing the geotechnical services for all sites. J. Fuller, Peak Engineering, Shepard Westminster Engineering, and Woodson Engineering are providing the design for the suite of the projects. The first guaranteed maximum price from Eagle Mountain Construction for the Grandview utility relocates will be presented at the July 3rd council meeting, with construction anticipated following the 2023 monsoon season. Design for the suite of projects is anticipated to be complete by the end of the calendar year 2023, with GMP number 2 anticipated to be presented for council's consideration in February 2024. This will set up the remaining construction of the suite of projects to occur during 2024 and 2025 calendar years, with construction anticipated to be complete at the end of 2025. Up next is City of Flagstaff Capital Improvements Project Manager, Mac McNamara, to provide an update on the Parkway Basins project.
Thanks, Eli. So I'm just going to give a brief update on the Parkway Basins. Tiffany Construction broke ground March 27th on Phase 1. That was consisting of Basin 1. Tree removal has been completed and earth haul-off started this week. Gas utility relocates have been completed, and APS will complete their utility relocates next week. Phase 1 will be completed by June 30th. And there's a tentative plan to construct Phase 2, which consists of Basin 2 and 3 in the fall. With that, I'll turn it back over to Ed.
Thank you, Mac. So we're going to switch to the other side of town. We're going to talk a little bit about Schultz Creek, so the pipeline area, Coconino Estates, Coyote Springs, etc. The first project we're going to talk about is the Schultz Creek Channel Stabilization. So this is the NRCS-funded Emergency Watershed Protection project between those Schultz basins at what we call the Schultz Y, all the way down to Highway 180. So we are working, NRCS is working on the federal and environmental and cultural clearances right now, moving through that fairly quickly. We will need to do a new channel survey for this section. We surveyed it right after the fire, but with the amount of erosion that we've seen in scour in the channel, that we will need to do a new survey before we have a design. So we are working on the procurement of both the design and survey this month. And then this NRCS EWP grant is relatively short in time periods. It really keeps our toes to the fire, if you will. So it has a period of performance of 220 days. So we will need to complete this project by October 15th. So we're moving quickly with it. A lot of need, kind of the two pictures you see here, you know, we're showing all these different pictures. A lot of times we don't explain what they are. This one on the top, this kind of nice looking little waterfall, that's Schultz Creek behind I believe it's called the Bungalows or the Bluffs. I apologize for that. Near the Museum of Northern Arizona. You actually don't really want to see this waterfall. What it means is we have a head cut. So the channel is actually unraveling. You're losing sediment. You're losing root structure. That's all going downstream and has potential to get into the neighborhood culverts. So we want to really stabilize that. The picture on the bottom, that's also Schultz Creek right upstream of the Highway 180 culvert. A little hard to see in this picture because it's small, but if you were to zoom in, you'll see there's quite a bit of sediment on both banks, and the channel itself is incising down. So it's cutting through that sediment from last year's floods, moving that sediment down, and then that debris that you see in the middle is not actually debris. That's actually in situ roots. So that's roots from some of those pine trees that have now been exposed. And as it continues to cut down, it will continue to expose that and move that material down into the culvert. So the real need here is to stabilize those channels so that we don't get that sediment, don't get that debris into the stormwater system downstream. So moving quickly on it, important project. Very thankful for the NRCS funding to support that. The other project, obviously of note, and we've talked about it a little bit, is Schultz Creek at Highway 180. Definitely some news there, if you will. We did find last month that the agendaq section of the pipe, so this 48-inch pipe that you see here, was damaged at one point. Hard to say whether that happened last year or if it was older than that. But due to that damage, due to a little bit of buckle in that corrugated metal pipe, it was able to collect debris and did actually cause a bit of a clogging issue in there. So agendaq did come in. They've cut out a section of that 48-inch pipe and resealed it. So moved the debris out, moved out the area that had a constriction, and put that back together. At the same time that was going on, there was a leak in the same pipe further upstream at the transition from the concrete to the corrugated metal pipe. We don't know how bad that is, but it has caused significant subsidence and settling along the entire footprint of that pipe. So that's kind of what you're seeing in these next two pictures in the middle and on the right. So that is different areas of that subsidence as the soil has collapsed in, as water has leaked around the pipe and has gone through the matrix and is moving out the matrix of the sediment and moving that downstream underground. So as we've done that, or as that's done that, we've lost structural support for both drive aisles for that fire station number 5. You can also see that we had subsidence along this section of 180. You can see how that's pulling apart there. So there is damage to the actual roadbed of Highway 180, as well as risk to our city-owned 20-inch water main that goes through that bike lane. So definitely a lot of concern there. agendaq's meeting with city staff regularly, almost daily, to work out a temporary mitigation to at least de-water that until we have a permanent mitigation in place. So what we're showing here is just one of the concepts. This is put together by SWI Ardura, the designer for this emergency mitigation, and being vetted by both ADOT and the city. So essentially, it starts where we know we have an issue. This is Station 5 here. Upstream here is Grand Canyon Trust. On the other side of the street is American Conservation Experience. So that where we're seeing the most impact is right where that box culvert transitions to that CMP. So we have that exposed. And the plan is to daylight that, if you will, so to allow water to pull up into a temporary channel and push that water into the Rio de Flag behind Station 5 and behind Grand Canyon Trust. So the hope is to dewater that to the point where they can do a permanent fix on their section of pipe, reopen full access to Station 5. Right now we have temporary access in the back, both through Grand Canyon Trust as well as out to a private driveway. So to get that mitigated, at least in the short term. And then at the same time that we're doing this, we're designing for a permanent repair. So at the moment, we've put a pause on that project that we've shown before, going through the Mount Calvary Lutheran School and Church property. We've put a pause on that design as we evaluate if there's not a more inexpensive and efficient long-term mitigation that we can do in the footprint of this temporary emergency footprint. So I spoke really quickly on all that. Going to move over to the modeling component of this. So Joe Lovrich from J. Fuller Hydrology and Geomorphology will provide a quick update on some of the modeling that goes into this temporary repair.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick update on this. The image you see on the right are the Schultz basins. So all of the mitigation that gets implemented gets rolled into the model to understand how it benefits or the adverse impacts of it downstream. So the basins are, if they're functioning correctly, there's a significant amount of attenuation that provides downstream. So it reduces the peak flows by a lot. There's a lot of variability in that, though. As the stream channels above begin to degrade, like we've seen them, there's a lot of sediment that runs down into the basin that takes up volume within the basin. So there's a lot of variability there, but overall they provide a huge impact downstream benefit. The second image in the middle of the page is we're on this iterative process working with SWI and Stormwater Department to figure out, okay, how does, by implementing these temporary solutions or temporary mitigation, are there any adverse impacts from that temporary mitigation? How does that play into our long-term goals with that area? And so it's this is again one of the iterations, but we're running this through multiple times as we're coming to the best solution with everybody.
Hello again, Mayor and Council. Stacey Breckland-Eggs, Grants, Contracts, Emergency Management Director. So talk a little bit about spring runoff and what we experienced. A lot of you were at the budget retreat for the Capitol when we heard about the levee issue. Daniel and I were able to leave the session and go out to the lower Lake Mary and take a look at that with Water Services. And obviously it was Forest Service property, but that's part of some of the response that emergency management does. We also, Sunday, I was reported out to Eldon Springs Road that the basins were overtopping and the road was flooding. So I was out there Sunday afternoon. Ed talked a lot about what's happening with the basins during that community impact time. That was the week of the 8th through the 14th. That there was a lot happening with that snow melt. It was hot, warm days. And so we were seeing that heavy melt, and so we were getting a lot of that community impact and flooding. Ed worked a lot with his team and his operations team to manage those basins and really kind of try to work the flow. Ed's talked a little bit. They really weren't designed for snow melt. But they did the job. They've held up a lot of water and have done a good job. Also during that week, we saw some flooding at Highway 180 in Magdalena, Fire Station 5. Tuesday night, we got a call from the battalion chief and the captain at the fire station that said that their road had degraded. You saw those pictures. Daniel and Chief Gaylord, myself, and Deputy Chief Wilson were all out there looking at it and walking it till almost 10 o'clock at night. It was just really flowing. It was amazing to see. The water the next day was gone. So those are kind of some of the things that we were out in the field doing and checking out the area. Northwood Apartments in Savannah Way have had some flooding in their area. They had one home that had some minor flooding. I was able to go out with Mayor Daggett and Councilmember Sweet and take you out to the site. We met and talked with some of the property owners, and I know a few of them are here. It's nice to see them. It was nice for us to get out there as emergency management, talk with the community, and hear about the impacts that they have and visit with them. So it was really nice, and I know they really appreciated you out there. Southside also experienced some flooding in the two homes. Water Services was able to respond along with EM, emergency management. There was some cottages that were in a low area that the Rio Channel had rose and it backflowed. And I'll tell you, I was out there talking with the property owners. A couple young gentlemen came up behind me and said, "How can we help?" And I said, "Really?" They looked like they were maybe college students. And I said, you know where Aztec is? Can you go get some sandbags? And they're like, "Yeah, I got a Jeep, I got a truck, I'll go do it." And they went and got sandbags. They covered the doors of the property owners. They were helping. It was really nice to see that kind of community neighbor helping neighbor effort. So it was nice to be out in the field and see people rallying together to help our community during the impacts. And then we saw impacts down in downtown, Cheshire, country club neighborhoods, and Daniel and I, our emergency manager, if you haven't met him before, I think you've met him up here. Daniel Kelly's our emergency manager. We were out in the field and talking with neighbors and collecting that kind of that information to report back to you. The foot trail segments were flooded. Continental, we ended up shutting down Continental Park. Amy Hagan and her crew was worried about the lighting in the park and being damaged with all the flood water, so we were able to shut that park down. And then let it dry out the next week, and everything worked out. We did report out to South Herald Ranch Road, and we met with County Emergency Manager that week in the 8 a.m., I think Wednesday morning, talked to a lot of the residents. The county responded and had filled in some riprap and tried to do it. They actually brought out a search and rescue vehicle and were help transporting people. So it was nice to see County Emergency Management and others respond to that area. So that's a little bit about some of the stuff that we were doing in that week of when it was really that spring runoff. And here's some photos. A lot of them you've seen. You've shown some of them on Fire Station 5, and you can see where the levee is and the park and just kind of some of that flooding damage. And where Water Services down below on the cottages that got flooded. So it was really sad to see some of the neighbors that really were impacted, but it was nice to see our crews, our city staff, and others out there helping. So talked a little bit about this emergency management response. We were out doing field site visits. We were identifying what happened, how bad it was, who was responding, who was leading the effort, and what we need to do. We talked a lot with community members. Our role as an EM is for response, support, and coordination. We did a lot of coordination meetings with Grand Canyon Trust and getting that temporary driveway. Worked with a lot of our staff and ADOT to do coordination meetings. I know we had some with the city manager, some last minute ones to deal with emergency mitigation. Assisted with Sarah Langley in her office to do press releases. I did a lot of media interviews that week with Daily Sun and others and CAF and other radio stations. And then we did a lot of senior and executive leadership situational updates to you. We're getting better at those. I hope that you receive them every day, and we'll try to get better at providing those situational updates as often as we can. It's hard sometimes when we're out in the field, but I know you want information and we want to feed you that information, so we'll work really hard to continue that effort. And with that, I'll turn it back to Ed.
All right, so Stacy kind of already mentioned this a little bit, but we have been actively managing those Schultz basins. So those basins were designed as 3 inline basins within Schultz Creek, mostly designed for detention. So detention means that it slows the flow, it drops out the sediment, drops out the debris, attenuates the flow, so the flow that comes out the other side isn't that large wall of water that we see sometimes during monsoon season. So how we're operating them right now is as retention. Retention is more of what you'd see as a pond, or French's Short Pond, for example, or Lake Mary. So it's holding the water back, allowing it to infiltrate, allowing ADOT and others to do the work they need to do downstream in a more dry environment, and then releasing the water during the periods of time where we do not have the same concern. So we're doing that through a series of kind of really just quickly designed gates at each of the inlets and outlets. So we have 2 designed outlets for this basin, for these basins. One is up here in Basin 1. That's for your typical snowmelt. Obviously, this isn't a typical year, but in a typical year, that was meant to be where the stream would flow through so that we wouldn't affect these 2 basins. They could grow grass and people can recreate in them, and this would continue along its merry old way. And then the other basin or other outlet is the bottom of Basin 3, and that's really meant for when these basins fill, that we'd be able to have both outlets operating fully. And then in a truly overflow situation, these kind of white things you see here, that's articulated concrete mat. We have our overflow basin here on the bottom of Basin 3. So that's how it's designed for detention. And then as we're operating them right now, and not so much now that we've moved through most of the snowpack, but back during the peak flow, we did have these gates operating so that we could fill each of these 3 basins as needed and release water out of each one as needed as well. So we'd have a gate on this inlet and outlet, a gate on this inlet and outlet, so between Basin 1 and 2, between Basin 2 and 3, as well as gates on the 2 outlets back to the creek. So actively working that. It worked pretty good. We do have some small leakage concerns that we'll get back and fix before monsoon season, mostly due to the fact that these, again, being designed as detention, there is no clay liner or hard liner in the berms. It is just earth fill. So we will go back and repair where there were some minor leaks, but nothing to be too concerned about, especially now that the snow melt has mostly passed. With that, we'll move into monsoon preparations. So we're moving out of snow melt and moving into the summer preparations. We've been doing quite a bit of work on the short-term mitigations as internal meetings. And I'll turn it over to Joe again to give a very quick update on modeling.
So with the modeling end of things, we're looking at proposed improvements for long-term or for mitigation, but we need to kind of turn our focus, I guess, for the monsoon. So for Spruce Wash, there's no updates to show you on Spruce Wash from what you saw at the February 2023 meeting and the public meetings that were then. The thing I wanted to focus on was on Schultz Creek. Like we talked about, there's some variability that's going to happen in the modeling based on both what's happening at 180 and how that's going to finally turn out, and then how the Schultz basins are going to function and potentially fill based on the storm events that we may get in the monsoons. So the idea is for the temporary emergency mitigation downstream to be based on the basins not being constructed. So it's a conservative way to approach the emergency mitigation while understanding that they do provide a benefit. It's just we're unsure how much sediment is going to come out of the watershed based on the storms, right? So there's some variability there. So this again, depending on what happens in the next couple weeks with 180, some of this modeling could change a little bit more, and it'll be continually updated.
And I should mention, I don't want to steal Sarah's thunder a little bit later in this presentation, but we will provide those updated maps during the community meetings. So we will show both what we recommend for short-term mitigations, which is the maps we showed last year, as well as whatever new maps we have. And we have several different iterations, like Joe mentioned. So there's a lot going on, and a lot's going to change as we have these short-term or emergency mitigation at 180 that will kind of play into what we look at. Another thing that's changing is those emergency alert thresholds. So these are those rave alerts that you hear if you sign up for them on your phone. So these are the alerts that get put out by the Coconino County Emergency Management. And we have alerts for both the museum area and the Schultz pipeline area. So we've met multiple times with both city and county emergency management, as well as a series of hydrologists, both internally as well as consultants, to look at the thresholds that we have for museum fire. And based on both watershed recovery, which is slow, but it is happening, as well as the capital projects. So those alluvial fan restorations, the parkway basins, the different projects that are going on. We are recommending to change the thresholds for museum fire. So the first threshold is at 0.25 inches of rainfall in 15 minutes. We are going to move that to 0.5 inches in 15 minutes. The second threshold is 0.4. We're moving that to 0.8. The third threshold is 0.75, we're moving that to 1.2. So they're all moving up the scale a little bit, and a lot of that's based on what we're seeing out there in the watershed, just based on rain events last year. Just making sure that the thresholds that we put out there, the rain events or the flood alerts we put out there are timely and are actually needed. So we don't want to cry wolf. We definitely want to make sure that we have those dialed in with the best science, and we think we do. On the Schultz side, we're keeping the same thresholds we had last year, but we're going to evaluate that in real time. And that, again, goes back to those basins. So with the basins that we have in place, if they're 100% full, we'll be using the same thresholds we had last year for sending out alerts. If they're completely empty and we have a rain event, it's probably going to be based on observers, because those basins will take several hours to fill before you see that same peak downstream in Coconino Estates. So again, a moving target on the Schultz side, but we're definitely going to have our ear to the ground we're going to pay a lot of attention on the Schultz side to figure out what we need to do. And on the museum side, we do think that our Spruce side, we do think that we've dialed that in pretty well. Okay, temporary mitigation. So this is short-term mitigations. Again, those, if you need an engineering assessment for either flood area, we aren't recommending any changes to the assessment. So if you had one last year or the year before, it's going to be the same assessment. But if you need one, feel free to call our call center, our service line. That's that 213-2102 number. Most mitigations that we've seen out there, so the sandbags, the barriers, are holding up rather well. So really the only mitigations that need to be replaced are damaged sandbags, the ones that have already been spilled open, the cinders have come out, the bag's totally torn apart. Those will need to be replaced. But if they just look a little ugly, they just have a little dirt on them or just discolored, they're great, they're good to go for this year. But if you are removing sandbags because you put in a new CMU wall, for example, or you just decide you don't need them, you can call in that same number, 2102, for pallets to be brought in or dumpsters. Pallets if the sandbags are usable, so we can reuse them. Dumpsters in the cases where it really is now trash. We have two locations for sandbags. That is that Aztec Street, so the Thorpe Park location, as well as King Street, so north of the County Health Building. The location that we had last year at the Schultz Y, that is closed just due to the amount of construction that's going to be going on in that area. The county has their new Eldon Lookout Road culvert going in right downstream of the basins, and then the city has the interbasin water line project starting up this summer as well. So very busy area, as well as a trailhead, obviously, for the trails. So it thought it probably for safety, it'd be best just to have that one closed and focus on Aztec and King Street. With that, I'm going to move over to volunteer days and Stephen Thompson.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is Stephen Thompson. I'm volunteer and event coordinator for the Sustainability Office. And for the volunteer days related to flood mitigation, we have a couple different opportunities that will be upcoming, still determining some of the dates for these. One opportunity will be helping fill sandbags for community members to gather at those locations that Ed just mentioned, at Aztec and at the King Street location. We're still coordinating a specific dates for the month of May. For that, we have one group in the beginning of June from NAU with over 100 participants who are willing to come out and help on June 7th to help fill sandbags and stage those for community members to grab as they need it. And then beyond that, we have a watershed cleanup series being coordinated by our Stream Stewards Coordinator in conjunction with Stormwater to help clear out debris, trash, litter, things like that, or vegetation that could be impeding water flow in certain sections of the Rio. That part can be a little bit challenging right now with the continued water flow, but eventually that will start to go down and we will have opportunity to get into the Rio on the first Saturday of every month, May, June, July, and August. So after you spend Friday evening on a first Friday art walk, come and volunteer on one of those Saturdays. And then outside of that, if there are community members who are calling in to that service line and requesting specific assistance because of some need that they have, we will be coordinating volunteer days to help those community members. And I know that one of the big things that we've been talking about tonight is neighbors helping neighbors. SBK had a really good example of that earlier, so encouraging all community members to do their part by just checking in with their neighbors to see how they can help. And with that, I know Sarah Langley has other things that residents can do more actively.
Thanks, Stephen, and good evening, Mayor and Council. Sarah Langley, Public Affairs Director. I have your last slide here for this presentation. So we're working on a variety of communications pieces to let residents know basically what they can do to prepare for monsoon season. We have a variety of residents. We have some who have lived in the area for decades, and we have some who this may be their first monsoon season living in that area. So we want to make sure that everyone is on the same page with information. So first, we have 2 community meetings scheduled for the beginning of May. We have our Pipeline West Schultz Creek community meeting scheduled for Monday evening. That's 5:30 p.m., and that's right here in Chambers. And then we also have our Museum Spruce Wash meeting the next Monday, so May 15th. That's also at 5:30 p.m. here in Chambers. I believe Sean Johnson has sent you all an invite for those meetings. So check your email and he can get that on your calendar for you as well. So apart from the community meetings, we'll also be using our normal variety of methods to get the word out. News releases, social media, e-newsletters, all that type of thing. And we have really several key messages that we're trying to communicate to residents before monsoon season. The first, first and foremost is to sign up for emergency alerts. That's really the most critical message to ensure that we can protect life and safety throughout the monsoon season. Second, we're asking that impacted residents review the flood risk maps and the emergency threshold alerts. So staff talked about that a bit tonight, but we will dive into that a lot more during the community meetings. We'll have those big maps for the flood maps that people can look at and meet with engineers specifically to talk about their property and what that looks like for them. In terms of refreshing short-term mitigation, again, this was also covered earlier, but our main message here is, you don't need to tear down your whole sandbag wall and rebuild it. It's really only those sandbags that are broken and that are on the outside of your wall that you need to refresh. As was mentioned earlier, the mitigations are in pretty good shape. We did a large refresh in the museum area last year, and the pipeline sandbags are about a year old now, so fairly new, so we're anticipating less refresh activity this year than last year, but regardless, we are ready to help out residents as needed. And then our final message is, of course, we encourage all residents to purchase flood insurance. That is something that needs to be renewed annually, so we're just providing that annual reminder for residents. So that's it for me. You can expect this messaging to go out over the next several weeks to residents and at the community meetings. So Mayor, I'll turn it back to you for any questions and discussion. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, does anyone know where people might be able to find assistance for purchasing flood insurance? And you don't have to answer me right now. I'm just wondering.
Can you clarify the question a little bit? So when you say assistance for flood insurance,
Assistance to, financially. Or do we know of any programs where people can apply to help them purchase their flood insurance?
I would have to look into it. It's a great question, and I don't know the answer right offhand, so definitely something we can look into.
Yeah, because we have a member in our community who had to make the decision between flood insurance and her roof, and so she chose the roof. So
Yeah.
we've been trying, but I'm sure that she's probably not the only person. There are probably others, and I'm just wondering, I haven't been able to find any programs out on the internet or anywhere, so just thought maybe y'all might have some ideas.
Yeah, not off the top of my head, but we'll definitely look into it, and obviously flood insurance is a rather costly endeavor, so yeah, definitely something worth looking into.
Other questions or comments, council? All right, we do have a public comment card. Steve Poor.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. First, I'd like to thank everybody who was involved in getting SWI to get the barricades on from being back ordered to being here. I heard yesterday that my neighbor, who has a 12-foot drainage, they have some barriers from SWI. They're in, so they'll now work with Frank McCormick, who is home. He's got an amazing outlook. He's very positive. For all you don't know, he lost his eyesight in the last month, but he's doing amazingly well. And I'd like to just thank everybody for getting that done, and hopefully that'll be in place shortly. Secondly, I guess I'd like to hear a little bit something more about, here we were last fall looking at proposals to fix the culvert on 180. There were 3 proposals. Now there's a 4th one. I'm wondering why we don't just jump on the one we picked, option 2, and let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poor. Staff, do you want to speak to that?
I'll do my best to speak to it. So option 2, or whichever option that was, the one that the long-term option, so it's a concrete box culvert that goes under 180 in a new location, near Mount Calvary Lutheran School and Church, then goes under the entirety of that parcel and drops out at the Rio. So rather clean option. It does require a little bit of a reroute of the Schultz Creek immediately upstream. The reason why we can't do that right now as the emergency measures is one, ADOT is not committed to closing 180 at this time for that emergency repair. So the emergency repair is really just to get the water out of that area where the concrete box to the corrugated metal pipe, the 48-inch metal pipe, dewatering that so that we can get the fire station back up and running, and we can get Highway 180 buttress to the point where they can get that lane either repaired or fixed or whatever they need to do. So that option, the long-term option up through the church property, that would require putting in an entirely new conveyance under 180, which we need to do in the long term, regardless of wherever we go. But this temporary option would not be touching that. So the existing box culvert under 180 would still be in place during this monsoon season until that we have the design, money, materials, et cetera, to actually have that mitigated. So that's really the big difference. If we had the money right now, we still don't have the materials. So precast or cast in place concrete right now. Either one is about 1.5 months to 3 months out. So we really do not have the material on hand to do an emergency repair of the entire road, as well as a conveyance from the edge of the highway all the way to the Rio. So really what we're working with, and what ADOT's working with, honestly, we're just helping out, is an open channel. So basically digging a quick ditch, if you will. And this ditch will not be the size that we want it. You know, it's not going to be the long-term fix, if you will. It's not going to be the long-term mitigation. This is truly just to get the water that we're seeing that's bubbling out of that damaged portion to the Rio. Will it have a benefit to Stavana Way and Coconino Estates? Absolutely, because some of that water that bubbles out near Northwood Apartments would instead be going through this temporary emergency ditch. So there would be benefits, obviously, to Stavana Way and to Coconino Estates, but to have a permanent long-term mitigation in this short time period, it's just not possible. Even if we had the money right now, even if we had all the property right now, the material lead time on doing it correctly, you know, with concrete or with whatever else is needed, gabion baskets, we just won't be able to make that by monsoon season. So really, we have kind of a two-tiered system now. One's temporary, one's long-term, and working with the designer, SWI, of how to make both of those work and get that short-term in before monsoon and have a long-term that makes sense immediately after monsoon season. Hit that hard in the fall. So hopefully that answers the question.
And as I understood it from the meeting that we had with ADOT, the spark of this conversation came about because the Grand Canyon Trust offered their parking lot for whatever we needed. And so that's kind of where the thinking then shifted to a short-term fix while we wait to do the long-term fix.
Yeah, that was definitely a large component of it. Was the I shouldn't say the ability, the willingness of Grand Canyon Trust to help with this process. Definitely.
Thank you. City Manager has a comment.
Thanks. And Ed, this will be a comment and a question. Thank you for your information. The reason for the short-term measure, as you have pointed out, is its location in directly at the end of the box culvert that ADOT owns and at the beginning of the corrugated pipe, which is breached and leaking. So that location was, you know, not discretionary. That was something that needed to occur with some exactitude there, and then going to the Rio de Flag channel. The question, Ed, is, as I have understood it, the short-term fix, the temporary fix that is now being pursued could become the long-term fix. I know that we're not through with design, but one ideal here would be to only dig once and not dig twice. And we have some willing property owners that we've been working with out there. So just want to invite you to maybe comment on that possible scenario. I know we're not locked into that scenario, but if you want to speak to that, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, City Manager. So our hope, as soon as we started working with this new alignment, is that the short-term mitigation, the short-term emergency ditch would be the same footprint or very similar to the same footprint as a new long-term mitigation. So that way, as you mentioned, we could dig once. Now, the likelihood is we'll probably have to dig twice, but we might not have to dig two completely different things twice. It might be that we already have the footprint, we just dig it to a different configuration. And you know how that's lined, whether there's pipes involved or whether it's open channel. We're still working through that. It's a kind of a complicated area because we only have so much elevation, so much fall to work with, and there is quite a bit of utility conflicts, but we're working very hard on that to make sure if we have to relocate utilities, we have to do it once. So we do it for the short term, and then when the long term comes around, they're already out of the way. So that's really what we're pushing hard for, and really it'll make it faster, and it'll make it a lot more inexpensive if we can have some synergy between both the short term and the long term.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Ed, I'm disappointed to hear that I was hoping with this emergency we wouldn't have to pay for something twice, and I know part of it's ADOT. But I'm happy to hear that we might be able to use that footprint for the long-term mitigation, but that still goes back to the under the 180. That is still the same size, and is the long-term mitigation that we have been talking about for the last several months, wasn't it to put in a larger culvert under the 180?
Correct. So the long-term mitigation will have to upsize through the ADOT right-of-way. So that, no matter what, will have to be upsized. So what we have right now is a single concrete box culvert, and it has a capacity, it depends on who you ask. At most, it's 270 CFS if there's free-flowing channel on the other side. We don't have that. We have a little bit of a flat area, so we actually lose some efficiency with that existing box culvert. So even if we had a big old ditch on the other side, we can only get so much water through it, and there'll still be a flooding concern for Stevana Way and Coconino Estates, even if we had the Grand Canyon on the other side of this little box culvert. The box culvert, by the way, is much larger than 48-inch, and it's much larger than the city-owned 36-inch, which is further down. That's where we have that bubbler issue. So anything we can do is going to be a benefit over what we had last year. But yes, in the long term, that single box culvert that ADOT owns will have to be replaced with something much larger for the capacity that we desire.
So if I understand you correctly, then this short-term, maybe long-term, but this current new plan mitigation won't be digging up the 180 to switch out that culvert. It's just channeling the flow.
Correct. So the short term will not be digging out the existing culvert in the ADOT right-of-way. So under the Highway 180, that will remain the same through monsoon season. And then in the fall, whatever we have for the final configuration will be completed by ADOT through their right-of-way, and the city will be responsible for what's downstream. So our hope is whatever's downstream, we already have it most of the way there. It just needs a tie-in. That's kind of our hope. We'll see when we get there. A lot of conflicts with utilities, with type of material, with the elevation's really just kind of goofy too, because I mean the existing box culvert's pretty low down, which means that we don't have a whole lot of grade to get out to the Rio. So we're working that actively. It's gone through a lot of iterations. You know, what we showed up there was just one of probably 15 different concepts that were thrown in the same footprint, so we're not going all over the place, but just how to make that work, and we're still working it.
Thank you.
All right, council, any questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, thank you so much, staff and Joe, for the presentation and the update. Okay, moving down to item number 5, public participation, and it looks like we have online commenter.
We do, Mayor. Thank you. Our commenter is Anthony Garcia. Anthony, if you'd like to unmute and offer your comments now, you can.
Daggett, Vice Mayor Aslan, Honorable Council, Management and Staff. I am Anthony Garcia, 2212 North Center Street, Sunnyside Farms, Flagstaff, Arizona. First, I'd like to thank you all for your continued commitment to our community and for all the hard work you do on behalf of our beloved city. I am grateful to come before council today and give everyone an update on the progress being made by Sunnyside Neighborhood Association Redevelopment Subcommittee on our community outreach efforts surrounding the potential redevelopment of Old Firehouse Number 2 adjacent to Joel Montalvo Park. After last week's submission of a citizen's petition to put this item in front of council next month, we turned our efforts towards garnering support from residents, businesses, nonprofits, and the educational community, both public and private, within the Sunnyside neighborhood. Since these efforts are still in the preliminary phases, we are confident that we will obtain robust support and feedback from everyone in the community as a data point to submit to council in the weeks to come. So far, as we walk the neighborhood, this idea has been met with smiling faces, excitement, and exuberance on the numerous possibilities that a project of this magnitude can offer our community. I'm also very pleased to report that District 2 County Vice Chair Vasquez stands in support of our subcommittee and will be handling many of the executive level meetups with local dignitaries to show support for this community investment and partnership opportunity between the city of Flagstaff and the Sunnyside neighborhood. At first call for public participation today, you heard other key members of the SNA Redevelopment Subcommittee add their voice to this project prior to the city's upcoming budget retreat. Since we are still unclear if this item will be broached during those budgetary meetings later this week, we are doing our best to shed light on the importance of this community investment opportunity. I want to invite Mayor and Council to walk with us around Joe Montalvo Park at your earliest convenience to connect with the community and collaborate on this vision, if time within your schedule and ethics permit. Thank you all again for considering this neighborhood improvement and potential educational opportunity for our city's youth. And I apologize for always showing up at final call, but I work late sometimes and I'm always a work in progress myself. Have a good night.
Thank you, Anthony. All right, we have no more public commenters. So moving down to item number 6, informational items to from Mayor, Council, City Manager, and future agenda item requests. And we will start down here with Councilmember House.
Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sweet.
Happy to report that we had a great trip to DC. Mayor, Councilmember Matthews, myself, and some key staff. It was a great trip, and I'm hoping to see some funding come our way. And I do want to do a quick shout out to Barney with a happy retirement. I got my start with the city being on the airport commission, and Barney inspired me to keep going. So there you go.
Thank you.
Here you are.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to ditto what Councilmember Sweet said. It was a very productive, very long, hard on the feet trip, but I feel like we made some really great progress, and I also anticipate some funding notifications coming soon.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris.
Nothing today.
Vice Mayor.
Nothing other than a quick go Suns. Game 5 is tonight. I hope we can put this one away and move on to round 2 of the playoffs.
I took a tour of the career. That was all you had, right? I'm sorry.
Nothing exciting over here tonight.
Of the Career Technical Education, CTE, programs at FUSD at both Flag High and at Coconino. And I had no idea the breadth of options that are available to students. It's really remarkable, and I think that more of the community needs to know about these great offerings. And I want to remind the public and council that this Thursday evening from 6 to 7 at the Eastside Library, there's a water supply planning presentation. And so if you are interested in learning how the city plans and what the city's plans are and how we're stewarding our water supply, I would highly recommend attending that. And finally, this weekend, the mural is being painted in my office, and I am very excited about that. We plan on being there all day Saturday and all day Sunday with the students and the teachers. And council, you're welcome to stop in anytime if you would like to. And that's all that I have. Staff, is there anything?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, well then we're adjourned.